go ahead and call this meeting to order. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And while we're doing that, let's remember that today is the anniversary of 9/11, 12 years ago. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks everyone for coming. So first on the agenda, comments and statements from the public. Just form a line at the mic. Thank you. Okay. Anyone? Bueller? All right, Dr. Dargan, we got a acknowledgement of the new staff.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce to you, so far in the district, we have had 18 new teacher hires. Many of them are here this evening, and we still have 3 teacher positions yet to be filled. So I'm going to ask now, very quickly, each of our new educators to come up. They're going to introduce themselves, and they're going to tell you what their assignment for this school year is.
Hi, I'm Tom Flanagan. I'm at the middle school. Can you hear me? I'm Tom Flanagan. I'm at the middle school, and I'm teaching ELA to 5th and 6th graders. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Tom.
Hi, I'm Kathy Santos. I'm also at the middle school, and I'm in 7th, 8th grade math.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan Struthers. I'm teaching over at the middle school, and I'm teaching 5th and 6th grade social studies.
Thank you. Stop growing.
Good evening. My name is Gary Parziali. I'm going to be teaching phys ed at the Macomber School and as well as the high school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Belanja, and I'm the new Director of Guidance for the district, and it's a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Schott. I'm at the elementary school as a reading interventionist, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Katie Howland. I'm also at Westport Elementary School. I'm the grade 2 inclusion teacher. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ginger Cameron. I'm the occupational therapist, and I'm district-wide, mostly housed at Westport Elementary School this year.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Lambauer. I'm the new kindergarten teacher at the MAC, and I'm very excited to be part of the district.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Viveris. I'm the media specialist at the elementary school, and I'm back full-time this year and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jessica Thompson, and I'm a special education teacher here at the high school.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Hi, Justin Walker, middle school, 5th and 6th grade science.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Corciari. I'm at the high school, and I'm here to teach biology and marine and any other life sciences they give me. Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Courtney Daly, and I'm at the middle school, and I'm teaching 5th and 6th grade math, everyone's favorite subject.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Sandy Mock, and I'm finally a behavior teacher for the district.
Be careful what you wish for.
Hi, I'm Mike Pont. I'm a 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher at the middle school. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
David Thomas, interim principal at Westport Elementary. It was
an exciting first day, and I'm glad to be here.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
So it was a very competitive pool. You can see that we have hired the best of the best, and we wish them all the best of luck in their new positions.
Thanks. Well, on behalf of the school committee and the administration, I want to welcome you all and thank you again. Westport's a great town. Westport schools are a great district. We're always looking for good people, and knowing Dr. Dargan, I think she's found a bunch, so thank you. And Ann, did we collect the parking fee from these guys yet? Thanks, guys. All right, next on the agenda, something that we've been wanting to do and tried to do, and we decided to put it off to September, but now we're here, so we're going to acknowledge Mr. Ray Elias. Sorry, excuse me, guys, I'm a little nervous here. Ray, why don't you come up? Can I take this one? Hi, Ray. Thanks for coming. You know, anyone that's been in Westport for more than a week has probably heard or has run into Ray. You know, my first run-in with Ray was probably out on the baseball field with, you know, my kids, and Ray was out there umpiring. And, you know, then it was basketball. I kind of got to know Ray, I guess that was 2 years ago now, Friday night basketball when my oldest son did that program. And it's amazing how, you know, someone like Ray could keep 30 third graders, maybe 38 initially.
50 at times.
50 at times. So, and you guys out there, you guys know how difficult that is with, you know, 20-something in the room. But Ray always seemed to manage it very well. And maybe it's just the way he spoke to the kids. I think we could all probably learn a few lessons from Ray. The way he handled himself. Ray is never afraid to tell the kids what's on his mind. And I think the kids respected Ray. More importantly, I think, the parents there, because so there's 30 kids in the gym, 40 kids in the gym, and then a lot of parents also. But I think more importantly, the parents respected Ray and had no problems either leaving their kids there or staying there for a few hours and when, you know, while Ray was coaching in basketball. There was no doubt when Ray was in the room, when he was speaking, it was Ray in the room. And the kids were listening, and everyone was listening. And they respected Ray. And I think one of the reasons they respected Ray was because Ray respects all of them. And, you know, if you have the pleasure to get to know Ray a little bit, you know, one thing you know, you'll realize is he's honest. He tells it like it is. You'll always know exactly where you stand. And that's very important. And again, that's one of those things that something that we could try to model ourselves. But anyway, so I just made some notes here. I talked to Ray last week. I called Ray. I just wanted to touch base and, you know, just kind of ask him some questions. And you know, with Ray, one of the things, the thing that stands out about Ray is whether it was baseball, basketball, whatever it is, it was never about winning. So the pressure was never there to win. Sometimes we won, sometimes we didn't win. But regardless of the outcome, at the end of the day, the end of the game, the end of the practice, the kids were happy. More importantly, the parents were happy, because we all know if the parents are happy, the kids are happy. And that's Ray's thing. I mean, it's about winning. It's after many practices, Ray had a phrase that he would many times remind the kids of, and it was church first, family, and then school. Now, this is Ray, a basketball coach, a baseball coach, umpire. He's not saying sports, competition, team, and no, it was church, family, and school. If you get, and sometimes the order would change a little bit, but that was Ray, and it was very clear, and it just comes off, and that's just the kind of person Ray is, isn't it? So. Anyway, so last year, a couple of years, Ray's been retired for 4 years, and they managed to drag him on and keep him on, a little bit longer. But I guess this time he's finally, I guess that list around the house has finally gotten to the point where, if he doesn't start that list now of all these things he's been passing up over the years, he might not have a chance. So Ray's not going anywhere. Still works full time at Lee's, and he still gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning to take care of his cows. Ray's not going away. He's just, it's just time to slow down a little bit, but he's not going away. Ray was telling me the other day when he first started this way back 20 some odd years, and he has a tough time telling me exactly how many years, but we know it's over 20 for sure.
He's 29. 20. Yeah.
But he was telling me way back when that things were done on a handshake and a word, and how things have changed today. It's emails and forms and queries and all kinds of stuff. And, another thing that Ray told me I thought was important, that, again, something many of us could live by, is try not to reinvent the wheel. And I think Ray said that in a sense, and I think the way I took it was, Ray did what he did. He coached the way he coached. He didn't go crazy. Fundamentals, don't reinvent the wheel. It worked. It worked for many years. It still works. Respect the kids. They'll respect you. Be honest. And again, those kids knew exactly where they stood. I'll never forget. I don't know if I should. It was after one of the practices. Kids are running back and forth, and there's this one kid, maybe a little bit slower than the rest. Ray pulled him aside, as Ray would, look down at this little boy, 3rd grade. Said, "You like donuts, don't you?" And, I don't know how that all fell, but I know that kid was back every Friday. But that's Ray. That's how Ray was. Ray gave his attention to every one of those kids all these years. When people ask him, when I ask him, why do you do it? And I guess if you don't do it, maybe you try to come up with all these reasons why, but I think his answer was simple. It was because he enjoys it as much as the kids enjoy it. And he said his trophies were, walking down the street or maybe bumping into some kid that he coached 10 years ago who would run over and say, "Hey, Ray," or, to Ray, that's why he does it. And that's what's important. I think we all need to live by some of those. So anyway, Ray umpired for many years, never took a dime from the league. Still does some umpiring still, right? Still not giving that one up, but so anyway, so
put the gear on, I'll get behind you.
Yes, some of those calls a little questionable, but he's still. No, I've had the privilege of being around Ray with baseball for a few years, and then the basketball. So Ray, we got this plaque for you here. I'll just read the plaque. In recognition of exemplary community service for the past 20-so years as a volunteer coach for the children of Westport. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and name the elementary gym. It's going to be known as the Raymond Elias Gym. So we'll mount this up on in the school somewhere on the gym, and so from now on it'll be the Raymond Elias Gym, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. Thank the school committee. I'd like to start out by thanking my family, because it's important. My son, who is educated in the Westport school system, and then he went to high school at Bishop Stang. And I was hoping and praying that he would come to Westport. That didn't happen. He'd have been a starter here, and he had to play second fiddle there. He hurt himself twice, had the determination to get back on the basketball court both times. That says stamina there. He probably got some of that from me. But I know that we were out there many, many nights. The toughest person to coach is your own child. It was much easier for everyone else's child, for me. But I would like to take the opportunity to thank some gentlemen and a lady who coached me. And that would be my mother and father in the beginning, Coach Al Palmieri, Coach Don Doyen, Coach Feniger at the middle school, my dad at some point in Little League. I'm hoping I'm not forgetting anybody, Mr. Walt Silvera. And I'd like to take the opportunity to say what went on during those times. They taught us respect for the game, respect for your opponent, respect for the officials that are in it, and respect for yourself. And that's what I brought to the Friday night program every Friday night for 22 years. I also coached for 27, part of that. I got involved because my son wanted to play. I thought he would never play. He was always riding a horse from 2 years old to 6. And then his friends were playing where I was coaching. And his friends told him, hey, you got to come, we're having fun. And I made it fun every Friday night. The biggest problem, I thought she might be here today, is I probably have more tenure in that building than the people that are here. I was there every Friday night for 22 years. The person that was there more than me was Mrs. Doobie, who couldn't make my son draw for nothing. His stickmen were horrible. But she always talks about him. He had a good experience at the elementary school with the teaching staff that was there. I enjoyed being with all of the elementary school principals. Alex was part of it at one point. He was there. He's a pretty good player, too. The guy that we just lost, he was outstanding. And I only know him for a short period. Mrs. Costa was exceptional. But when I started, like Tony said, it was a handshake with Margot Desjardins. No paperwork. Okay, Ray, you got the gym, you do this, you do that, whatever you want to do. And whatever evolved to this point now, I know it has to be because we're in today's society, but like Tony said, I never changed my program. And my program pretty much ran military style. Tony will verify, and the principal at the Makama School, I think she's here, her son was there too. First night is kind of hectic, chaotic to say the least. And I'd let it go for 10 or 15 minutes after 6. And then I'd blow the whistle, I'd look at all the parents in the room, and I'd say, that's the last chaos you are going to see here. And then the following week, they're all standing at attention. Am I wrong, Tony? And it can happen. And I had a school teacher from New Bedford Volk at my final game this past April write me a letter. And in the letter it said, sometimes we could use you in the classroom, Ray. And I never once scolded a child that left crying. Not once. I believe in 80-20. I was taught this by a coach. 80% of the people come and go. You never see them, they pay taxes. 10% run the show, you're watching it up here. 10% are in prison. I think that's life right there. I think that, I used to tell my students, not my players, that, which one you going to be? Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Since April, people have walked up to me everywhere. I can't go anywhere without somebody talking about this. I am very, very deeply honored.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, great, thanks. Summer program updates.
The summer programs will be presented by the people who ran them, so we'll have them come up one by one, just to give an idea of what the program was, what the focus were, and what are some of the growth that they saw through these programs. So we'll start right at the Macomber with Mrs. Picetto, who came back to visit tonight just for this.
Thank you for having me back. Just to talk a little bit about the summer program over at Macomber School, is very successful. And I know that you have the paperwork in front of you, but just to kind of review it, almost half of the what we really wanted to focus on primarily, we were noticing that students that were coming into kindergarten, the students that were scoring the lowest in the kindergarten entry assessment, were the students that were maybe didn't have any access to preschool or any schooling whatsoever before they came to Macomber School. So we wanted to give them the opportunity to have a program, mind you short it was, so that they could kind of get some skills, whether it be just simple, this is how you are when you're in school kind of skills, or some early numeracy skills, early literacy skills. So that's kind of where we tried to focus. We also were able to house the students going from kindergarten into first grade, and the primary focus for that was to avoid the summer slide that I'm sure the other principals, assistant principals will speak about as well. But we really wanted to, for the students that were coming into kindergarten, avoid when they enter that lack of foundation, because as the kindergarten year progresses, there is such a disparity as the students that might have been acclimated to any type of schooling, they progressed further and further, and the students that maybe came in and had never even saw ABC before in their life, they were at a disadvantage. So we wanted to kind of nip that in the bud. So out of the students that were invited to the entering kindergarten program, almost half of them attended, and you'll see on your chart that their early literacy scores went up 81%, which was huge. And this, just to keep this in mind, that they weren't just learning about early literacy and early numeracy, but they were learning about how to be in school, how to sit next to somebody without hitting them for 2 hours. They were learning socialization skills, how to not get up and go to the bathroom every 5 minutes because that's when I want to. So they really learned a lot about structure and about transitions and things of that nature. As short as a time it was very beneficial to them. Then the students that were going into first grade, more than half of those students attended, and their growth was significant in terms mainly for the writing, but also, which was kind of surprising to me, was subtraction. And I owe this all to the teachers. The 4 teachers that were teaching the program did a fantastic job with these students. They started off by pre-assessing every single student that came through their doors, and every single student was given a completely different curriculum based on what they needed. So they really did a phenomenal job with every one of these students. They differentiated the instruction, they made it fun so the kids wanted to come back. It was really, really a successful program. There were some attendance issues, I think mainly because there were some people that maybe couldn't make it there for the times that we had, and also because of camps and vacations. But other than that, it was extremely successful.
How many weeks, Julie?
5 weeks. Seems like a lifetime ago.
I was actually going to ask you about the attendance, and you sort of addressed that. So my next question is, when you look at the growth numbers, did you crunch them with and without? So, for example, if you had a student that only did half of those,
Yep.
Was there a significant difference in the kids that attended the full versus not?
Correct.
There
There was a significant, yes. If you crunch the numbers without that, absolutely, it was much higher. But I was only giving the entire picture just to make it fair to everyone. But there were some kids that came for maybe 2 weeks, and then they went on vacation for 2 weeks, and then camp for a week. So rather than not have them attend at all, we wanted them to come so that they could at least have some kind of
Did
education.
you get feedback from those parents that had issues, whether it be camp or vacations or whatever, as to why? So that next year, when we plan
earlier.
We can plan around things like that and maybe try to make it more accommodating for those issues.
They said if they had known this was going to happen earlier on, then they would not have signed their child up for camp for that week. Or my own boys went to the one over at the elementary school, and I had already signed one of them, I forget who, up for camp, for karate camp. And I couldn't get my money back, so he wasn't going for that week. So if I had known a little earlier, I definitely would not have signed him up for that week. I would have signed him up for a week after or before. So that's definitely something that was a big deterrent. However, I think honestly the biggest deterrent for it of the people, if you're talking about the students that did attend, if you're talking about the students that did not attend, because that was my concern. Why didn't they attend? The number one reason was they had nobody to get them there. They relied on, their parents worked all day. They had no transportation for them to get there, get back. They stayed at whatever daycare during the day. So that's something to think about in the back of your mind, because we did lose about half of the students in each of the programs. And the number one reason was because of that. Number two reason, and this was I only heard this from maybe 2 or 3 parents, not a lot, was he's had school all year, I want him to have a break. But really it was surrounding transportation. Some people actually carpooled and did things of that nature and were very creative. But for the most part, that was the big reason. And I can understand where people are coming from with that. So just something to think about in the future of busing.
Michael. Hi, and certainly thank you for coming back and sharing
My
the
pleasure.
successes of this program. A couple of questions in kind of to dovetail off of what Michelle asked. For our planning, we want to do a little bit earlier.
Yes.
I'm a little unclear on the invitation process.
Okay.
And then the second piece is, I thought we were going to open it up for even out-of-district people, and I'm just wondering how we may have been able to reach them. That there's a fairly large population that comes to Westport in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Had we had it out on the scroll that there was this summer school going, maybe not this year, maybe next year, they would start to plan it in. So I'm not sure if it's an invitation only, which makes it much more selective. And then I wondered, with the structure we have here, we invited 82, 41 signed up, and did very well, by the way, and congratulations. Where there's some seats that we didn't fill with everything in place, the number of teachers in place, the program in place, could we have accommodated 20 entering kindergarten instead of the 15? Did we have a cutoff point?
I would say definitely that was the cutoff that we maxed out, because we're talking about the students that scored the lowest on these kindergarten entry assessments. I'm speaking only of the preschool going into kindergarten. And because of that, they needed very, very intensive instruction. And for those teachers to be successful in doing that, this was ideal. Okay? Same thing with the entering first grade. Those students had a little more knowledge of, to put it bluntly, just where the bathroom is located. They didn't need as much hand-holding, so that number was a little higher for the 2 teachers that were able to teach that. So they did great with that. But I think that if you are interested in certainly moving forward with getting more students, and I think that could be possible by maneuvering the whether it be a cutoff point or the entry, however it may be, then I would just say additional staffing would be necessary. But I honestly think that you're going to see some real growth from those kids this year because they had some successes over the summer. They had a lot of, I don't want to say remediation, but to avoid that summer slide. Also, in talking about how these students were chosen, the preschool students that came to us, or the entering kindergarten students, they come in and they do what's called a Brigance assessment. And some of these students, they literally just show up, okay? They've never been anywhere before, they've been home for 5 years or whatever. They do this Brigance assessment, and if they get a certain cutoff score, that's when we invite them to summer camp, okay? We invite them to be a camper, so to speak. But entering first grade, those were more of, what the teacher said, if there was something like that.
Great.
So that was the criteria, if maybe. But of course, looking back, you can always maneuver that around. And we had some people that, I really feel that my son, daughter should attend, and sure, if they wanted to, given suggestions, absolutely.
We'll invite you back when we start planning it for next year.
Okay.
Then we'll have water and coffee. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like it was good, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See the schools, they do quite well. It's interesting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Christine Staskowitz. I'm the assistant principal at the Westport Elementary School, and I was the one that oversaw the direction of the summer school. You have in your packet some of the figures that we were able to compile. First is of course, the attendance. Actually, we were very, very impressed with the attendance at the elementary school. Parents really were invested in the program. Even on those hot 100-degree days, they would be there. Those kids would be there. Many of the children signed up for both reading and math. If they did reading, it was about 90 minutes, and if they did math, it was about 90 minutes. So they would be there for the long haul. We had grades 2, 3, and 4. The current 5th grade, who were, of course, our 4th graders last year, went to the middle school. As you can see, I have to say that for the most part, we did have some significant progress in grades, especially in grades 2 and grades 4. And then, as you can see, we also had fairly good growth rate, and that was averaged in with kids there were some children who did not go every day, obviously, and there were some children that, for the most part, ahead of time, parents had let us know that they had already signed up for a camp, or, they wouldn't be able to go maybe the 3 days, but they could go the 2 days, and they were very flexible about that. How we determined the students who were selected for the summer school it really is based on teacher recommendation. We do that primarily looking over their overall performance during the entire school year, but we really focus on that last trimester. Kids that we really feel are in danger of regression, especially in math and reading. If they haven't made benchmark, they haven't made grade level, then of course research shows that they do lose. They lose about 10 weeks. I mean, they're out of school for 10 weeks, so they lose that much in their skills. But also, another piece was the kids who just had made benchmark. They finally had gotten to grade level, and they really had worked hard. And the teachers just felt that support, that 3 days a week, that support was what was going to not only keep them at grade level, but actually possibly support them and actually be able to help them to actually progress, so that in September when they came back, that their growth rate and their reading level would be the same. And the math, we did the exact same thing. It was based on teacher recommendation. There was pre and post tests for both reading and math. And kids were using RAS Kids, which I think some of you are familiar with, especially if you have children at the elementary school, and also Achieve 3000. RAS Kids and Achieve 3000 were our summer reading programs as well. So the kids were able to not only use the RAS Kids and the Achieve at home for all of the kids, that was their summer reading program, but also those kids that needed that extra also were able to be monitored by their teachers. So it really did make a huge difference. And then, of course, progress monitoring was implemented to measure growth and levels of retention in all skill areas in both subject areas. After we finished doing the summer school, we had an assessment clinic where parents could voluntarily bring their students, their children rather, to the school in order to have them assessed by one of the reading teachers or even their classroom teacher. And it was noted that many of those children that had come to summer school, that the teachers did remark, it's amazing that they really did maintain that progress. So I would definitely put in a plug for it to be continued, because I really do think it makes a huge difference. And I do have to compliment the parents because they really were invested in making sure that their kids got there. Okay, I don't know if anybody has any questions.
How many instructors did you have?
We had, let me see, we had 6 instructors. What we did is we combined first and second, because, we had second grade primarily by themselves. Okay?
Second grade is first going into second,
First
right?
going into
Okay.
second. And so we had, we actually had one of the former kindergarten teacher from the MAC, as well as, and she's got ELL background. And we also had one of our first grade special ed teachers. So they were working with those kids, and then we had 4 other teachers that worked with second graders and third graders. Yeah.
Now, how many that you invited did not choose to do this? Do you know?
I would
And
say.
what were their reasons?
Most of the reasons were just like Miss Pacetto said. A couple of it was is late. It was late when we put out the notice, and that certainly people already have plans. They've signed up for camps. I mean, those of us that are parents know you need to get those, especially basketball camp and day camp, swimming lessons, that type of thing. So that was part of the reason why they didn't do it, but the majority of them, it was a transportation issue. It's because their parents work, and many of them just don't, they have a way to be able to get them there, they don't have a way to be able to get them home.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mike? Yeah, I'll just on the same line of thinking, I asked earlier of the MAC program, of the setup that it is now, and I think I should clarify, my question was with the existing budget, is there capacity for additional students with the number of teachers and all, or is that pretty much capped out at these numbers?
It is capped out at the numbers simply because of the fact that it is targeted instruction, and we do want to make it be very, very targeted. It is interventions. However, we probably could accommodate more students, but we would definitely need more teachers, because really the ratio, I think, is very, very important when we're doing this targeted instruction.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Ponce. I'm the assistant principal at the middle school, and I did the summer school program for the middle school this year. We based our program on teacher recommendation as well as success rate for the current grade that the children were in. For the first time, we had grade 5 housed in our summer program, and I just want to put in that I think that was a great idea because it was an easier transition for them. The transition from 4th grade to 5th grade, elementary to middle, is huge, and these children had the benefit of coming in, getting to know the building, as well as, meeting some of the teachers and, finding their surroundings. We had 92 children invited, and of that, 61 came. We offered both a math program and an English language arts program to all grades. Of that, we had 11 5th graders, 8 6th graders, 9 7th graders and 5 8th graders, for a total of 33 in math. In ELA, we had 17 5th graders, 4 6th graders, 4 7th graders, and 8 3rd graders. Our attendance rate for math was 70%. The attendance rate for ELA was 77%. Of these children, our policy at the middle school is that if you get 2 subjects below 65, you are required to attend summer school. In both subjects, we had 4 students that were required to do this. So, and all 4 were successful. Our growth rate was pretty good. For grade 5 in math, it was a 36% growth rate. Grade 6, 29%. Grade 7, 30%. And grade 8, 71%, for a total growth in math of 42%. In ELA, we had grade 5 was a 67% growth rate. Grade 6, a 58% growth rate. Grade 7, 61%, and grade 8, 72%, for a total of 65% growth rate.
Wow.
Overall, it was 54 for all students. What we did was, in ELA, there was such a difference in the reading levels with the students, is that we broke it down into groups. We had one teacher for each subject with 2 sessions, one going from 8:30 to 10, and the second one going from 10 to 11:30. We ended up bringing in a second ELA teacher to handle the numbers for ELA because the levels for their reading were so different. So we were able to do a differentiated learning program through that, along with the Achieve 3000. We broke them into groups and had them reading at independent levels, allowing them to use their summer reading books and get their summer work done during that time. We also did the Achieve 3000, which measured their success by computers. So that was done 2 different ways, and that was really a successful program. In math, they were given a pre-test and a post-test to determine their readiness for their grade level. And the way that the math instruction was done was that the teacher went through their test, looked for their areas of weakness, and then concentrated on those areas and monitored them on a weekly basis, so that she was able to see areas that needed improvement and, what that improvement was. So overall, we ended up with a 54% success rate and improvement rate.
Sounds good to me.
I have actually a question. This is actually the only group that I heard really much real feedback on. I mean, I heard people talking about it, but the only feedback I've heard, and I'd like your opinion and your thoughts, is that the grouping for the students that needed this for promotion versus the students that were taking it to either get that boost or to stay level, that they were grouped together. And I heard some feedback that people didn't feel that was necessarily the right thing to do. I'm curious to hear your input. I don't know myself, and I'm sure you've heard it from people, so I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
My opinion on that is, and we had discussed this, is that like Chris and Julie, I feel that the program was started a little too late, and I think that next year, if we started it sooner, there would be more time, not only to have the families prepare for bringing their children in, but also the teachers. There was not a lot of time given to prepare academic plans and, to really gear. The other thing that we would need to do differently for next year is, again, because it was such, a close time range, is that we would need to be more prepared for the 5th graders who came in. We probably could have done a better job of knowing what their levels were. There were some of the children that came in where we weren't really sure where they were at, so it took some time to get to know them and measure, how they could be successful and where we needed to work.
Okay, so you've heard this, you're ready to address it for next
Absolutely,
year?
yep.
Perfect.
But whatever you did worked, because, their growth rate was well up there, so that's good.
And I do have to say, as far as math goes, we're starting 2 new programs at the middle school, and I do believe, they did use them this summer, and that was a great benefit. They are great programs.
How many of these kids are crossovers? So, like the kids that did both?
9 students did both subjects. And obviously, of the children that needed to do that to proceed to the next grade, those are looped in there. They took both, so 4 of them.
Mike?
On those 4, is it the same 4, or do we have a total of 8 that need a promotion?
No, it's 4. It's
Four.
the
So
same
they
4. They
doubled.
have to pass both subjects in order to move on.
And they needed remediation on both subjects?
They did.
Okay.
Yes.
And it became a little clearer, and I actually held my question back about what we used to think of summer school as versus differentiated learning, et cetera. And as you get into middle school, there's a need to achieve in order to advance. But I like the idea of hearing about the differentiated learning and would wonder, is it expanded enough? Is there some students, perhaps on the higher end of the spectrum, that want to come to school during the summer? And maybe this smaller classroom setting on the teacher-student ratio, just a couple of classes, is there any way for even students that aren't there because they need remediation, they don't need it for promotion, gifted and talented students, could they be in the same program?
They definitely could.
And benefit from it.
They absolutely could. One of the issues that we ran into at the middle school was, again, because it was later, as far as teacher participation, we actually had 2 teachers who were, didn't have plans over this time during the summer and were willing to come in. And last minute we had quite a few more children sign up. So we ended up adding that extra teacher. So that's what I mean by starting earlier and being more prepared. We'd be able to academically assess what we needed a little bit better. And yes, we could service those children.
Great. The last question I would have, and it has to do with our schedule, this will be tied to our budgetary cycle. Unfortunately, that's later in the year, and I think that affects our knowing if we'll have the funds for it. Maybe you can assist my inquiry at the early stage of our budgetary process is some of the Title I funds available for summer programs? And is that being spent here? Maybe that's where we can seek funding for these type programs. So that would take some analysis perhaps of the students that attended. And, I don't really know how we would know if we could budget that now, but
I think we would have to look at the Title I budget and go from there. Off the top of my head, I don't know the numbers. But yeah, that would be a great idea. I'm sure several of these children are Title I children.
So maybe Dr. Colley can advance that conversation if it makes sense. Thank you.
But it was a very positive program, and I would absolutely do it again. Just
Thanks,
a little more
Carol.
planning time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Karen Antonelli, the assistant principal at Westport High School. As you know, we've had a very successful summer collaborative program for a number of years with BCC. This summer, we were able for the first time to offer summer school classes within our own high school, and the focus really was for those students who were in need of credit recovery. Attendance was excellent because absence was not an option. So they were there every day.
Absence was not an option.
Not
I
an
like
option,
that.
yes. But I have to say that it was a wonderful program. It enabled 2 of our students received their diplomas at the end of the summer school program. A number of students will now be able to be members of the class of 2014 because they had been credit deficient prior to the summer school. And again, from my role as assistant principal, I often deal with students who, as we know, if you begin with one class and then find yourself falling behind for whatever reason, it certainly makes school a place where you just don't feel as though you're making progress. So it was great for these kids to really have the option or the opportunity to catch up with their credits. And I really have noticed a change in them as they return in September. To be part of the class that they should be part of is really very positive for them. So it was great, and I really do hope that we are able to offer it again. And prior to this, most of our kids who wanted to recover credits went to other communities, either Fall River or Swansea. And I really think that we know our curriculum, we know what's going to be expected of these children when they return the next year of high school, so that it's really much more beneficial to them to come to our school and put the money in Westport, as Dr. Colley's doing that.
No, just the other communities do
I
charge
get
a
it.
lot more
They
than
do.
we
They charge much more money than we charge the students, and sometimes that is prohibitive for them to continue to, gain their credits.
I feel like I'm starting off all the questions. Would you ever envision this, or would you ever think about this becoming an option, not just for credit recovery kids, but maybe for a student who, say, took Algebra 1, passed it, knows they're going now to Algebra 2, and maybe just needs that extra boost to be more successful in Algebra 2 or something along those lines? I'm just throwing something out there. So could that be something that we might expand into at
Certainly
some point,
could be.
not
Again,
just
this
credit
was
recovery?
our first summer
Okay.
offering this type of a program. My feeling is that it's wonderful to be able to have our students that we know well
Oh,
know
absolutely.
exactly what we want them to know and be able to do to come to our summer school.
Absolutely.
So, and I felt that the kids felt that they were coming home, to where they're used to being. I'd rather have them be within our walls, actually.
Karen, how many kids from the middle
There
school,
were-
high school?
30. Within this program, there
30.
are quite a few more in the BCC program.
Good.
So, yeah.
Great.
And I do want to say that Melissa Plord, we had math, social studies, science, and English, and Melissa Plord, our adjustment counselor, really was a driving force of, maintaining the students' emotional well-being throughout the program as well.
Pretty much in line with the same questions, but a couple of things you mentioned, that we don't charge as much as other communities. If you have that information handy, pass it along. Our budget subcommittee might look at, what are we charging? In order to keep this program alive, we might have to review that. So,
Right. I do think that, again, though, sometimes and quite often, students do not go to summer school because they can't afford it. The option of other communities was they didn't go because they didn't have the money. So this is how we kept our kids moving along.
We absolutely want to be the best price in town, but
We do.
we want to have the program continue to exist. So if we can find out a little bit about that. But also opening it up to perhaps other students, and maybe not Westport students, if we're ready to look at that option yet. Again, I don't want to change what we're doing. It looks very successful, but again, there may be some visitors or people that live in Westport year-round that go to other schools that could benefit from some of the great programs we have. And it's clear that the summer program is a great program, so we want to figure out how to
agree.
how to pay for it, but also maybe opening up some more seats in each room. I don't know, just something I think we should
Okay.
look at.
Yeah.
So
Melissa.
thank you.
All set?
Melissa's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I don't
Melissa.
know if this question is for you. There's a Westport Summer Academy at Bristol Community College in our...
Yes, and
It's coming.
Christina Borges
It's coming.
will be speaking of
Oh,
that
okay.
program. That was, the first one was mine.
Oh, okay.
And
I
then
wasn't sure if that was part of
Christina
it.
will
Okay.
speak to that right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is
Hi.
Christina Borges. I'm a teacher at the high school, and this summer I oversaw the Summer Academy at Bristol Community College. I'm actually very proud to be part of this program. This is our 4th year. This is a grant-funded program through the Department of Education, and we work in partnership with Bristol Community College. So our students attend classes taught by our teachers, but on the college campus. This summer, we had 23 students who participated in our program. We had various sections in our 4-hour day throughout the summer program. So students would begin with an academic component, and they were enrolled in either an English language arts class or a math class, depending on their area of greatest need. And we use data such as previous MCAS scores, report cards, and transcripts to determine where students needed the most instruction, whether it be English language arts or mathematics. There was also another component in which we took advantage of being on the campus, where we prepared students to look at college and career skills by doing certain activities and workshops at BCC with their professors, and students explored departments that focused on STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They got the chance to do real hands-on work in areas that provide jobs in these fields, such as engineering and green energies. Also, they looked at things like the planetarium and the TV studio to see where technology is being integrated in the career field. Another component of the summer for 2013 was a pilot program that had students create a service project. So we focused on the use of technology in our everyday lives, and students were able to bring what they learned about technology and create an info fair at the Westport Middle School. So this is a multifaceted program that brings academics, college and career readiness, and community outreach into one cohesive program. And this, again, like I said, this is the 4th year that we've done this, and we've had much success over the last 4 years. As you can see, like Mrs. Antonelli said, attendance was not an option. We had excellent attendance, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 students who had legitimate doctor's notes, excused absences. Most students attended 100% of the time. We also had excellent growth rate, and that was measured using a pre- and post-assessment in the academics. And these numbers here represent average growth rates for the aggregate grade level. However, every single student demonstrated growth, individual growth from the pre to post assessment by the end of the summer. One of the components of this program that I'm truly proud of is the fact that it targets entering 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, so it really is for students. It serves students in 2 schools, the middle and high school. For entering 9th graders, it gives them a chance to learn some of those skills that are necessary for that very important transition year, being freshmen. They get to meet other students at the high school prior to entering in September. They learn the academic and social skills that are necessary in order to be successful, and they learn the what parameters are necessary for high school achievement. For our returning students, the entering 10th and 11th graders, in addition to all of the areas that I just mentioned, it also gives them a chance to earn or recover credits at no cost, given that this is grant funded. Students are able to attend and recover those credits so that they can either maintain or increase their standing at the high school. Students that were in the entering grade 9 received up to 2.5 elective credits for high school, and students who were entering grade 10 and 11 earned up to 7.5 credits towards their high school diplomas. Are there any questions?
Sure. How is this different than the other program, and why would a student do one over the other?
One of the things that's different has to do with the fact that we're working in collaboration with Bristol Community College. So that is very enticing and motivating to students. They get to be on a college campus. It gives them that preview of what college could be like. In addition to the academic program where students are in class, reading, writing, doing mathematics, preparing for MCAS, there's also the activity portion when they're on the campus working with BCC professors, doing hands-on activities, and really seeing what is the application of this learning? Where can I apply this later on in my life? And so it makes students more committed to their education so that when they come back to high school, they can say, I can do that. I can go on to BCC and pursue my education and work in a field that is interesting to me.
Obviously the program is very successful. One of the things that, when I was reading through this, that struck me was that family celebration day.
Yes, I'm very proud of that.
Now, okay, yeah, that's great, and go celebrate the achievements of your child. But the part I find intriguing about it is that you're able to get those parents in there, and they can actually see what's going on. I mean, it's like our graduation. I mean, we do that every year. You know, at the end of 4 years, all the parents, everybody's in a great mood, and everybody's so proud of their kids. You know, I don't have the answer, but I just, wouldn't that be great if we could kind of get that into the schools once in a while through the year somehow? I don't mean a big to-do, but I don't know, just get these parents in here. Not to go sit in the back of the room and read to kids necessarily. We don't, you know, I'm not saying we need that, but in all levels. But just, you know, somehow get the parents to realize that there are great things going on in this system. There are great things going on here at the high school, and we don't do a good enough job letting that be known out there. So I mean, that's the part. I mean, the whole program is a great success, but
Mr. Veras,
the idea that was in there as just a little added benefit, and the people showed up, 80%, whatever,
84%.
80. I mean,
yes.
they show up.
And I appreciate you noticing that. I do think that, I do agree with you, and I do think that this is a beginning into spreading that word that Westport is a great place to send our children to get a great education. You know, many parents, every parent wants a good education for their child, but not all parents know how to achieve that or attain that or support their child. And this family celebration allowed parents an opportunity to share the success with their children. And I'll just share a very quick story. I had one parent, well, we sent out invitations to all parents by mail, and we followed up with phone calls, and I personally spoke to every single parent of every child in that program, encouraging them to be a part of that special day. And I spoke to one father who, after I told him how important it would be to have his presence there for his son, he said to me, I didn't really realize that was a big deal. And it was such a big deal to his son to have his father there. But it's almost like no one had ever told him that. And so I do think that this is a beginning. It's in these small steps that we achieve that message. And like
I mean, that
said,
little moment could be the moment in that child's life that
father
you know,
had
that,
an aha moment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these moments just happen. We can't just create them on our own. We wish we could, but I don't know. It would be awesome to, you know, maybe we do need to send an invitation. Maybe we do need to make that personal phone call to get a few parents in here once in a while, and to realize what's really going on. And when they walk out of the building, they go, wow, there is a lot of great things going on around here. And then they can help us spread the word instead of us trying to hammer down all the time.
I think that's beginning. I mean, we can see that already beginning in all areas of the district.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, before she leaves, she's also going for an internship in school administration, so it's a work in progress, I know. Just to summarize a couple of things about the summer school, last year we did go through the budget process to start this new program, and I think by the time we rolled it out, we had most of the pieces in place. I think if we continue with this program in the budget, I believe that then we could, on a much earlier basis, be able to notify parents, notify staff that the program is running, so we could be a little better prepared. No matter how you do it, it's like with the Macomber School, where you put out that, hey, we're going to have students register in March, and even all the way to the day before school starts, people are still registering. So you will have some of that no matter how you look at it. We did try to maximize the number of staff to the number of students that were registered before we started. So if you had a teacher and 15 students, we say, okay, that class can run. If we had more than that, you know, you needed a few more to split the class and get 2 teachers, so trying to get the economies of scale in there. When we started this program, I'll be honest, we were just looking, can we get students to maintain or even get ahead over the summer? We did not really look at some of the other repercussions of having all this work going on in the summer that we've never had before. I know my office, the people in the business department, with new staff coming in the summer, more payroll going out, they really were stressed out. Usually during the summer is the time to catch up on projects, whether it be filing or putting stuff away or shredding materials that are old. They never got to it. I know when we consider how many classrooms we were going to use over the summer, one of the considerations and concerns was while the classrooms are being used, you can't really clean them. So even the custodians fell behind. We tried moving some people from building to building so that when one school was done, we'd get more people to one school to clean. But we may have to look at this, in particular, if we start earlier and we get a better response as to people wanting to participate, what effect that will have on the rest of the operations of the district. But I do think the administrators that spend the time here in the summer working with the teachers who are very, very dedicated. I'm telling you, it was hot in some of those days. But they were working with the kids, pushing them to continue learning, and I think they did a great job. There are a couple of concerns that we noted. One of them is transportation. The other one is conflict with other programs that are running in the summer. I noted that some of the kids who were invited at the elementary school were coming to the summer program that's run by CFC over there, and yet summer school's going on over here. We tried to steal some of them back. But again, in many cases, it ended up being an issue of transportation and childcare. So hopefully, if this program can continue, we can plan a little bit to see that perhaps those two programs can dovetail and help some of these parents so that they can come to summer school and then go into something like the CFC, so they don't have to worry about where they're going to pick up or who's going to have the kids in the afternoon. One last note, the BCC program is grant funded. We have been very successful over the last few years to receive those grants. There's a planning grant and then there's a summer grant, and they are competitive grants. And in many cases, these small grants, because they're not huge, but they're targeted, you don't get them year after year just because you have the same program. I think this year we got it because we added a couple of the components, like the STEM component. But it'd be one of those programs that, unless we build it into the budget, and we don't usually find out about the grant till late in the year, if we don't build it into the budget, that may be a program that we lose if we're not successful in getting the grant, because it is competitive, and sometimes the state looks and says, you've gotten it for 4 or 5 years, other communities are asking, their program is as good as yours, maybe we'll go in a different direction. Or grant funding can go away altogether. So it's one of those things that we hopefully will look at this year to perhaps put it into the funding. If we get the grant, great. If not, we can still run the program. One of those ideas that have been kicked around amongst the administrators.
Mike?
Yes, I appreciate those footnotes, Dr. Colley. What I understood is that running the summer programs had some overwhelming aspects to it that affected administration. And secondly, that going forward should have a complementary relationship with other programs, which sounds great. I know we talked about some of that as we did go through this year's program, but in a first year, it seems like it has had great success. And I kind of agree with you that for it to succeed in the future, we do have to compartmentalize this as an additional unit. This is above and beyond our obligations to the educational district. Some of the programs are helpful. We understand why they're helpful, but we certainly don't want it to be overwhelming, and I'm hearing a sense of that. So next year's program, I think we want to see what other partners we can get to come in and help us with that. That's what I would suggest for future business.
Yeah, I mean, a few things were clear from the presentations that, teacher-student ratio is obviously a huge component of that. So that's always, I think that's, you guys know how I feel on that, but, and we understand that it was kind of put together late in the year, and it was a lot of tough work for the teachers involved and administrators involved. But, I'm sure they know, but I just want to repeat that. It was obvious that it did succeed. So the hard work was not in vain, and they should be glad. And it was pretty clear that it was a very successful program. So, okay. All right, let's move on. Subcommittee updates, and Melissa,
No,
you...
you're skipping.
I'm skipping.
Transportation.
Transportation update. Oops.
See, she's already coming.
See, I already had it checked off my list.
You weren't going to skip her.
Wishful thinking.
Good evening. I'm just following suit. Dr. Colley had asked me just to put a little presentation briefly together just to give you an update on transportation for the start of the new year. I apologize. With the start of the new year, to put something together quickly, I was doing it still at 5 o'clock. So
None needed.
This year, I think we've had tremendously, surprisingly great start off. And I was in my office, I think, at 5:30 Tuesday morning, and I did go home at 6, just, making sure that everything went smooth, trying to stay on top of any little glitches that we did have. And, I think in any district, there's always going to be those few glitches of a student dropped off at the wrong house or the wrong stop, especially when we have many parents that have many stops. We have a lot of parents that don't just have their children go to their home address or get picked up at their home address. They have 3 and 4 addresses. Monday and Tuesday they go here, Wednesday they go here, Thursday they go here, Friday they go there. So this year something that was new that I did implement, that no bus changes were going to be allowed for the first 2 weeks of school. And for myself, for the drivers, for the staff, and I think even for the students, it was a huge relief to be able to have, it's bad enough dealing with the kids when they're coming in, unloading backpacks, they're in a new grade, some are in a new school, new teachers, new friends, new buses because they may have moved over the summer, or their parent now is they're going to a daycare provider that they didn't go to, and not them having to worry that they knew by August 16th what bus they were coming home on and what they were coming in on. I think that definitely was a huge relief, and for me it was a safety issue. Last year was atrocious, and for this year coming out and starting the way that we did, the secretaries were, they were just like, this is huge. And the drivers, felt a little more confident knowing that they weren't going to get 20 slips a day handed to them at the end of the school day. So that's something that we will continue to do each year from here on in, because I do think for the safety of the students, that is the best way for us to handle that. As far as the number of students that we have, I'll give you a little rough idea. I do have like a small enrollment figure. It's basically just a rough idea. At the Macomber School, we have about 105 kindergarten students. Pre-K, we have about 76. First grade, about 126. Second grade, 146. Third, 116. Fourth grade, 129. Middle school, 5th grade, about 138. 6th grade, 133. 7th grade, 164. 8th grade, 118. 9th grade, 91. 10th grade, 93. 11th grade, 98. And 12th grade, 110. Giving us a total enrollment right now at about 1,643. I didn't bring any type of reporting regarding enrollment. I just wanted to give you an idea so that I could let you know how many students I have riding. At the elementary school in the MAC, I have about 629 students riding the school bus. Keeping in mind that we have many students that are brought in and many students that are picked up. Some might be dropped off in the morning by a parent, some might be picked up at the end of the day by a parent, and some might be brought, by a parent both ways. That gives you, out of this 181 and the 517, we probably have a good amount that that are riding the bus, whether one way or another, or if not both ways. Middle school, high school, I have a total of 662 students riding, which is really a high percentage of students riding when we have 553 at the middle school, 392 at the high school. So we have close to 940-something students in total, and I have about 662 students riding. So we do have a good 70 70-80% of students that are riding the school bus for middle school and high school. Again, keep in mind, a lot of students do come in by a parent, but do use the transportation to go home with. As far as the fees, I think this year, I didn't see a great deal of increase. I know that last year we talked a little bit that maybe with reducing the fees, that we might see a little jump in the fees. I didn't see that this year, but that could be a little bit from either the enrollment being down, could be the age of the 11th and 12th graders on who has their licenses this year. I did notice the parking lot's a little fuller at the start this year, which is something that usually doesn't happen until mid-year. So that could play a little part in it. But even with the change of the dropping the fees down, $25 for middle school and $25 for the high school, the amount of transportation fees that came in was $45,725. And I do have the figures compared to last year. Compared to last year, the fees were $54,985. So there was about a $9,000 decrease in transportation fees, which again could just be the drop just in the $25. That basically probably accounts for that. But for as far as number of students riding that paid for transportation fees, last year there were 317 students that paid for transportation. This year there was 336 students that paid for transportation. So there was a little bit of a jump there. The other thing that I did notice also was the waivers that were applied for. I think with the economy being what it was at some point during last year, I did have about 91 families that applied for the waiver, where last year compared to, I believe I only had about 50 families that applied for the waiver. So again, that was almost 50%, jump there of students that now have applied for the transportation waiver. And the waiver, it consists of not strictly families that apply for the waiver. It could also be foster children or children that have in their IEP, their individual education plan, that they receive transportation. So there aren't a lot of those, but I still wanted to bring up what the waiver, that total consists of in that piece there.
That waiver number is not in this paid.
No, because they don't pay any. They pay.
So you could assume that perhaps there was a difference of 30 for waivers.
In the waivers, the
From
difference in
last year to this
waivers,
year?
there was actually more than that. There was about 41.
So conceivably, that could have brought our ridership paid increase, adding to the 336 up closer to 360 or something, right?
I think I'm a little confused on your question. Sorry.
We had 336 this year.
Correct.
The waivers, if they didn't get the waiver this year,
And
if
they
got
did-
the waiver this year, but they didn't
they
get
did
it last year.
Correct. All right,
then
I'm sorry.
that number, that 336 could have conceivably gone up to 350 or 360.
Correct.
But now they're included in a waiver number.
Right, they're
so-
included in a waiver number.
Okay.
Which, like, for example, if you look at the waiver from last year, the waiver amount for last year, like I always put a dollar figure on it, was about $11,455, I believe, and this year was like $17,000. So that is the difference of the students.
Almost your 9 right there.
Right, so that was just to give you a little idea of how the transportation fees were affected this year compared to last year. As far as some of the other items, right now we have 30 special education students riding on the special education van. We have 7 students that are out of district, 17 students that go to the MAC in the elementary school, and 6 students that come to the middle and to the high school. So that has not really increased a great deal. I think we've lost 1 and gained 1. That has basically stayed about the same as last year. Right now, a couple of things that, as far as even talking about the number of students that are riding, parent pickups. I've been keeping a little bit of an eye on the parent pickup situation and trying to do some monitoring, taking some notes, and watching the volume of students that are being picked up. And we're averaging about 125 students that are parent pickups every single day at the elementary school. We took a total from last week, and we ran 113, 115, 125, 123, and today we had 130 parent pickups, students that are being picked up. So that's 130 parents' vehicles in the parking lot between 2:20 to 2:50 at the time of dismissal when all of the school buses are coming in, and those parents are then picking up children, walking across parking lots, cutting through the parking lot with not just one student, sometimes with two, sometimes with a grandparent, sometimes with 3 children. The crowd control that's there, it's something that I know I bring up all the time, and I hate bringing it up, but it just makes my stomach sick sometimes to watch the safety hazard that could happen there. So it is something that I do feel the need all the time. And because they're crossing in front of the buses that are my department, I do feel that it's something that if I can help, I want to be there to help. So it's just something that I want to lay out there for everybody to be aware of, that that is a huge hazard. You know, I can't say enough for parents. Parents should not be driving through the line of the buses. It is for buses only. In front of the schools, it is buses only. I have had the same parents drive through these lines and then turn around and walk through the buses with their same child and not realize that what they just did could have, the damage that it could cause. So it is something that I've been down there continuously trying to help the staff that's down there, that, you know, they have as many staff out as possible and they do a fabulous job trying to keep everybody safe. At many times, one person, I've stopped one time to tie a little boy's sneaker. I turn around to tie a sneaker, and I've got a parent right behind me trying to cross in between the buses. So, you know, you're trying to help one child, and you've got adults walking, you have adults crossing in between buses. And I just would love to have parents take this seriously, that the impact of crossing in between school buses at the end of the school day or the beginning of the school day, or driving their vehicles where school buses are, they do not belong there. I cannot stress that piece enough. It is a huge hazard, and it's a huge safety issue. So that's just something I have to say, that to bring that out there. One of the things. Oops, sorry.
No, that's good. Going back on the waiver,
yes.
I just wonder if maybe, I know last year we had an inquiry about the waiver. We had more interest in it.
We did.
Did we communicate with the parents, this is available, you should
Yes.
fill this out?
That is something else that on the paperwork that I send out, I did make note of that in there to let parents know we do have waivers available. Please fill out the free and reduced lunch applications.
And your call.
And my one calls that I've done to make sure that parents are aware that, you know, fill out the free and reduced lunch application, fill out the waiver forms, provide the right documentation, and, you know, there is chances of qualifying, and it does help. It helps the household a great deal if they can apply for those waivers. So I did put a little bit more information on that paperwork, and when I have gotten parents that have called and said, gee, you know, I can't afford to pay the $200 by the due date of August 3rd, you know, I try to encourage them. You know, have you tried to fill out the waiver form? All you need to do is fill out the free and reduced lunch application, fill out the waiver form, send it to me. I can get right back to you to let you know if you qualify or not. And a lot of times that has helped people where that stress of having to pay by August 3rd was taken care of. Because this year I did ask, and I will continue to do this each year, because it's something, in order for me to get my routes processed on time and to make sure that they're running, just having the extra time this year, I think the routes they ran a little more efficient. I was able to clean up a lot of the routes from last year, a lot of doubling on buses being in different areas that last year I didn't have the amount of time for, where by having parents having to turn in their transportation forms by August 3rd, I still had 100 parents that paid after the due date. Which, in saying that, and many parents, it was the fact that they were on vacation. But I was receiving the same, I was on vacation right up till August 29th. And in many of the districts, they charge a $25 late fee if you pay after the August 3rd deadline. And in doing that, it does help me to build my routes quicker. It helps me to make them more efficient. It helps me to make sure the students are on the right buses in the right places, along with the change forms. I gave them deadlines. And Chris Daskowitz and I did discuss coming to orientation at the end of the school year to have me come and discuss the transportation and why they need to do their change forms early, and to discuss with even the other schools why waivers, it's important for them to fill them out, or the change forms, or just even including free and reduced lunch, to be there for question and answers for families that sometimes call me the first week of school and say, oh, I didn't realize that. So that is a piece that even with the other principals that I will get I will get together with them to try to
Yeah, the late
see if we
fee's
can
not
work on that a
not
little bit
bad
better.
Not a bad idea,
The
maybe.
second part of my comment was, first I heard about the safety problem, and I call immediately for a motion I'd like to make, if possible, to stop parent pickups until we resolve this. We've just been told of a hazard at the elementary school. Can't they park in the back of the middle school lot until the buses are off the property if we can't fix this? 'Cause it's not something I'm willing to accept.
I'm there every day, and not that I'm one person being able to take care of it, don't take me that way. The staff there and I have been working every day diligently to make sure that safety is the number one priority there. We are in the process of trying to look in some different options and procedures on parent pickup. We have many parents that won't put their children on the bus. They won't put their children on the bus. And the problem is having them park at the middle school at the time that they're coming in. Now they're walking in the street. There's many issues that I've talked to Dr. Colley about it just this past week. We're working on, I'm gathering information, I'm keeping counts of the pickups. I'm there every day. I'm there in the morning every day at drop-off. I'm there every day at pickup time. And we are doing, some parents have not been happy that, I won't let them cross. And I remind them, we're doing this for the safety of everyone's children. We're doing it for the safety of the staff. We're doing it for the safety of the families. We're doing it for the safety of the children. And we will get to a solution, and this won't be a solution that will happen in January, where if I have to stay there every day in the morning and every day in the afternoon to give them extra hands to make sure that we're providing them with safety and coming and going, and we're getting the buses out of the main street so that they're not there, it's just the parents. It's a tough one to say that I don't believe we can stop parent pickups.
No, till a certain time. I'm saying
to
these
a certain
students
time.
you're signed up for parent pickup, you're going to go to the cafetorium, and we're going to go out and down the hill to the middle school parking lot. I would like to, tonight, have the school committee react to something. Was just, first I heard about a hazardous pickup situation at the Westport Elementary School. And, because of that, she's there all the time. So
repeat your motion.
If I can make a motion to immediately address by adjustment the pickup procedures at the Westport Elementary School. Then that's the motion.
I'll second.
And with that second, I'd just like to
Discussion.
open the discussion that I'm not one to decide how to do it, but I'm not one to accept that there is an administrator, staff person who's come to us and said, there is a safety hazard at the elementary school. How can we accept that? Is my support in this motion.
Melissa?
So I had a few questions, but speaking in regards to the motion, have you thought about alternatives such as pickup in the back of the
I
parking
have.
lot? And then, so you have thought about.
I talked to Chris Daskowitz yesterday, and I spoke to Beth Bacchiacchi, who's someone who participates in the parent pickup. And one of the things that we have discussed that we're trying to gather information, we're trying to get the staff together to have a conversation to find out what are some of the obstacles they face daily, that how we would be able to be proactive before stepping out and doing this procedure. One of the things we had thought about was having the parents drive around the back of the building. You can house about 30 to 40 cars from one corner when they first take the right to come into the elementary school parking lot and around the building. So one of the procedures was it would involve hiring somebody for 20 hours a week, and they would come in, and what they would help to do is to monitor the parent pickup every single day, like all of the sheets, because the office gets probably 30 and 40 sheets a day. Like all of the kids, when they send in notes home, it's today's his day, he goes home on bus 7, today's his grandmother's day, he goes here, but Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays a parent pickup. So there are many notes that come in, or people that just have doctor's appointments, so they want to pick up their child, so they'll wait until 4. So that person would have to basically organize all of those notes, be ready, have a spreadsheet ready, and they would then give it to somebody who would be the first person that when the cars make the corner, they are there with a clipboard. They know who is the person picking them up. They have already checked them. They've asked for the ID. They've made sure that they're on the list, and they've put them in an orderly fashion. they now then radio to the people that are on the opposite side of the building, who in between then, there's like 4 or 5 staff involved in this, so it's quite an involved procedure, but they are calling the students to one area. As the parents are driving in, then there's a staff member who's lining the students up as the cars are in order by the student. And then there's a person putting them into that car, and then you have somebody at the buses who are holding the buses up. So if you have 15 cars that are full, there's that staff member's holding the buses up, letting the 15 cars out. Then if the buses are ready, then they let so many buses out. So you kind of have like 5 different staff that need to be involved. But right now for parent pickup, you have about 3 to 4 staff already involved in that procedure, except now they go into the gym. So this here would eliminate, if it's organized, and, obviously it would take some fine tuning, probably a couple of weeks of patience by everyone's staff, families, but I think it would keep people in their vehicles. It would avoid them getting out of their cars. They wouldn't, bad weather, rainy, snow, whatever the deal is, they're still in their cars, they're never leaving their cars. It would take a little bit of organization, but it's something that I've thought about for the last 2 years, and I did discuss it yesterday with Chris. I spoke to Mrs. Bakayaki, who participates in that, and they both feel with a little bit of tweaking some of our issues, things that could, the parent that calls up at 2:30 saying, I'm not going to make the bus today, I'm going to pick him up. Well, those students might not be in the same line for that, where that parent might be told after 2:30, if you've called in, you need to park your vehicle and come into the school to pick up your child. Prior to that, those other parents have to go through the bus line.
Have the parents who pick up their children, have they been received any type of documentation saying these are the problems, you can't do this, you can do that, or a one call? And then there's open house tomorrow too. So I think the message has to somehow get to these parents.
Right, which Chris and I did discuss that as far as for the orientation for tomorrow night, is to discuss this issue. A lot of times we find it's the parent, it's the grandparents, or an aunt, or an uncle. Sometimes it's the father who doesn't normally pick up. It seems to, from what I've seen just this past week, it seems to be the family members that don't typically pick up their children. So Chris Daskowitz was going to discuss that tomorrow night to bring that out. I was going to do a one call. I was going to ask Dr. Doggin to put it onto Facebook to remind parents, please don't cross in front of the buses, please don't drive in between the buses. We've been putting all of that together this week. We've been trying to just get some information and see what are the major things that are happening that we can document, send home, do the one call, put it on Facebook, and also Chris is already ready to discuss it tomorrow night at orientation. So we have been trying to kind of get that nipped right away before it gets too far.
I have a couple of things. First of all, I personally don't think a motion is necessary. I think we're having a good discussion, and I know you have been working diligently for transportation from the get-go. Second, we do have a school resource officer that I would like to see more active in the important times during the year. So starting off the beginning of school, in the different schools, to help set the boundaries for the parents, and to be quite honest, to help with the parents who really are either disrespecting the signs that are there. There's a sign right there that says buses only, and ignoring the signs, or ignoring you being out there saying, hey, stop. Perhaps somebody in a uniform will help with that in the beginnings and the important times. And I think that's something that we need to address as a school system and get him more active in some of these times, because I know this has been frustrating for everybody, for the teachers, for the staff, for you. Not to mention, it's a huge safety issue. I have a question though, and one piece of confusion that I can see myself having as a parent, and my son doesn't go to the parent pickup very, very rarely. So when the kids are dismissed, are the buses still there as the parents are walking out?
Yes.
So my next question is, and you're saying that parents are walking in between the buses. There's a crosswalk there. So do we have an alternate an alternate crosswalk for parents that need to get over there? Or are they walking to the crosswalk, which then puts them directly in between the buses? So that's one, as a parent, just thinking that might confuse me. If I'm going, I'm going to go to the crosswalk and cross, that crosswalk is right in between the buses. So are parents thinking, well, here's the safe spot to cross because it's the crosswalk?
What typically happens at 2:50, the students are then called down to the cafeteria. About 2:30, we have about 4 buses that are at the elementary school already at that time. 2:20, we already have parents. Today there was about 40 cars by 2:30 for parent pickup that were already parked at the elementary school.
And 3 o'clock.
Where were they
No,
parked?
this was 2:20. They
I'm
were
saying-
all over the, like, near, on the side of the road coming
They
into
were
the
gonna be there
elementary
till
school.
3, I'm saying.
Right, they're going to be there. They get dismissed they get called at 2:55. So at 2:55, they start calling for parent pickups. At this point in time, we do not dismiss any children onto school buses. But by 2:55, you probably have about 8 school buses already in. The first loop is already in, lined up.
2:55?
2:55. There are about 8 buses already lined up at that point. They're in, they're filled, they're sitting there. They're not going anywhere, they're just idled. That's where they are. At this point, many of the parents follow the walkway. They follow the walkways into the middle. They know where the walk is. There's adults on both sides. There's staff. It's housed by the staff. West staff has somebody on both sides. They're directing the traffic. They're holding people up, making sure the buses aren't moving. People also are crossing down near the baseball field.
So they can safely cross in
Oh,
that
yes.
crosswalk during that time
Right,
frame.
and
Okay.
the Westport, the elementary school staff is helping them cross. Like, they'll hold people up
So
if
that's
there are
not
people.
where they're crossing between
No,
the buses?
they're
Oh,
crossing
okay.
soon as they come out from the parent pickup line.
Yep.
Instead of walking to the right.
To the crosswalk.
To the
They're
crosswalk,
crossing
they
in
want to
between.
cross right there to get to the parking lot.
Okay. So my next question is sort of, and it actually goes along with what Michael's saying, is maybe we look at our time frame for, maybe we hold our parent pickups until the buses are gone. It's just another thought.
Right, and it's
You
something
know,
that we do have to consider, because you do have, like, union staff that leave at 3:15,
I
so
know.
at that point, so, and
I know.
we spoke about that today. Is there any way we could have the staff leave parent pickups, leave a little bit earlier, wait for the buses to go, then parent pickups? The other issue we have, which we're trying to iron all of this out, like, we're actively doing this every single day to come up with as much brainstorming as we can to see what will work, what will not work, how can we fit it into the time frame, yet, safety's been the priority for this week anyway, to, get a routine. And a lot of times the first week, many of the elementary school parents like to pick up their children. They like to drop them off. They like to pick up their children, pick them up at the end of the day. It's their first year at first grade. It's like in kindergarten. Many of the parents come in, like to drop off, like to pick up. Within a month or so, a lot of the kids are like, I don't want you picking me up. I want to go on the bus with my
It's not
friends.
cool.
Right. They want to spend more time with other friends that that's in their class or at recess. So it does kind of quiet down a little bit more. I think it's just very heavy in the beginning, more than normal.
Michael, to the motion.
Well,
please.
again, what the motion is not to review ourselves, the motion is to fix the problem. My ears perked up when I heard 2 things. One, there's a high-risk situation between school buses and students and parents at pickup time, and the current procedures are not working. So the motion is to immediately address that. And the reason the motion was made is because we were also told we've heard this before. I want to go on record of having never heard this before, but I also, in support of the motion, want to say, as I approach, and I don't go into the school at pickup time, but there's something going on there about between the signs and the trees. I don't have the answer, but maybe it's confusing, and maybe it's the grandparents and the aunts or someone who's not a regular pickup, but maybe it's just a signage, but I'm going to leave that up to the administration. We've got a hazardous situation at the elementary school that's been reported tonight. I think the only thing to do is to address it tomorrow morning and have the building principal meet with the transportation person and address any suggestions that have been out there and procedures that are going on. I don't think we're the ones that should be, reviewing that. So the motion clearly indicates, let's do this tomorrow.
Karen, could you read back the motion, please? All right,
Can I just respond to?
yeah, I mean, I think Michelle basically is doing that. I think we're doing that right now. I think it's clear that we're looking into the issues. I think she's identified some of the issues. There have been conversations, suggestions. I mean,
Something's going to happen, is what you said.
and that's exactly
what
why
she said
she's
to the
telling them.
town.
Well, I mean, I
And
think
something's
we're
gonna
just
happen,
asking them to. You
and
made a
we're gonna
motion
sit
for them
back.
for her to do what I think they're doing. I mean, it's just.
Well, I don't know.
I think
She-
we're doing that.
Very
Melissa?
uncomfortable is what she said.
My thoughts are with Michael's motion that and maybe you already are doing this, but from a school committee perspective, making it a top priority. I think that's how I understand it. And it's just saying, we really think this is important and something that should be addressed ASAP, meaning, tomorrow, at least something done in the interim before you're already on top of it, and I'm not second guessing what you're doing. I think that's great. Just, I think the motion is more of, we agree, and let's make this a priority.
I just want to second what Michelle said with regard to the resource officer. We have a person assigned to the schools. That person needs to be there. That person needs to be visible. That person needs to be out of their car and actively working to make sure that safety is primary. And I think that that's what we need to do. We need to request from the police department or the select board or whoever to get that person actively participating in the pickup and drop off during the times that the parents are coming to do pickup and drop off. That's not happening, and I think that absolutely needs to happen.
All in favor?
Again, I think in support of the motion, getting in touch with the resource officer would be addressing the problem. That's all the motion says. We don't need to know whether there's a situation with the resource officer. I mean, that's not our role. We want to address this problem. We don't want to analyze each particular solution to it.
Mike, I just don't want.
Let's put
I
Homeland
don't have.
Security
I don't
in
have
there.
an.
There's a risk in the schools.
I don't have a problem with the motion because, again, it's basically stating the obvious. We are doing that. Many of these things that you're hearing, conversations have been going on. People have been, so. I mean, I just think the motion states the obvious. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Now, Michelle, thank you. Anything else? Or?
My notes, I think,
Okay.
have covered it all.
Dr. Colley, could we possibly jump out of order and move on to the action agenda?
That's fine.
You guys-
Actually, I do have the budget
Even though we acted on
subcommittee
information
report that I wanted to be able to
item.
add.
No, I want to get
And it
Mary
was
Beth.
per-
I want to get Mary
and-
Beth on.
On which item?
Oh, right here. Donation.
Oh, okay. So you're going to go back to those?
Yeah, we're going to go back.
All
So
right.
if you guys, if the committee would indulge that. Mary Beth, we're going to go ahead and skip down and.
We're skipping to the Ed Foundation grant.
To the Ed Foundation grant? That's why you're here? No,
I
okay.
don't even see one on there. Where is that on there?
Oh, then never mind.
Never mind then. I guess
You
I.
can go sit down. She's here to watch. Here to take part. I'm being a good parent.
No, I thought, we got
You can go sit down then.
we got acceptance of a grant, so I'm sorry, I thought you were here for
You
that.
signed up for Athletic Boosters. They're doing a grant, but that's not you.
He
I
was
just
skipping
thought you
so
were
you
here
could
for that,
leave.
Mary Beth, so I was trying to get you out of here.
No, I had.
Go sit down.
No, she's
Thank you.
actually here to participate.
All right. Forget I ever brought it up? You still owe me one, though. All right, subcommittee updates. Who wants to go first?
We have the contract negotiation subcommittee. We're in the process of trying to finalize the AXME contract. And that's the only update. I think we have a meeting on September 30th. Am I right on that, Dr. Colley? I don't have my...
Yep.
September 30th to wrap it up, is my understanding from the last meeting.
Do you know what time? I'm on that committee, so what time is it on?
Melissa replaced you on that committee.
No, she was an alternate for one meeting.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
asking what time that meeting is, please.
It's at 4,
Thank you.
but if I may, usually they meet earlier, around 3:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 3:30.
I just haven't been, updated.
Okay, we heard you.
Thank you. In the packets, there's the planning board. I think during the summer, I was put on the the master plan subcommittee, and the planning board had asked for some information from the schools. So I filled it out, but I wanted you all to take a look at it to see if there's anything you wanted to add. They asked for our mission statement, which I just took from online, and then what are the key issues that your group would like to see addressed or the school committee see addressed. And I listed some, but please feel free to change, or if you have any suggestions to add there. And then also what would help would help the school committee accomplish your goals and objectives. And I did the same there. I've added some things, but I would love to include your feedback and this to pass on.
Okay.
So that's in the packet?
On your blog.
It was an addition.
If I could.
Yes, Michael?
Yeah, first question, I did have a couple of questions. I've seen, I didn't see your input, but in coming up with the key issues, are they key issues for the schools or key issues for the planning in town, for the planning board?
For the schools.
Okay, because that's my understanding after reading the law that calls for a master plan to be put together by the planning board. It is specific that they're looking for input about things that the planning board does, and that's what I've asked for clarification. So as I look at what you've got here, it may be certainly I'm sure it's some great concerns and issues, but I just don't know if it's relative to the master plan. That's where I'm still unclear on what the master plan.
So, if I may, Tony, my understanding is as they begin to do the master plan, we want to include the schools because they're an important part of our town. So how do we want to see our schools represented in the master plan? And, I talked a little bit about this with Tony and with everybody. Part of it is our school buildings and how do we be engaged within, and that's what I listed here, how can we be engaged with our other town departments and our businesses to help to move our goals as a district forward. And that's the piece that I think they want to include because we are such a big part of the town. Does that answer your question?
Well, it's again reflective of my understanding of what a master plan is and the tutorials I've looked at about putting a master plan together, certainly including the schools in the master plan, but I don't think reduction in high school dropout rate, although it's a key concern and issue for the Westport schools, it doesn't fit into a master plan. So I'm saying this, the planning activities, I think, is what we should limit our concerns to, and I haven't had a chance to look at this.
Sure, I would agree with you, and I don't think that would be included, because you're right, I believe that would be something that's from the school committee versus a master plan. So I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, so and again, I'm not sure what the answer is, but it just seems to be, it's being presented as concerns, all concerns versus planning concerns. But that's what I thought about that.
Tony? My understanding is that it is basically how we want the town to perceive how we'll be moving forward into the future, what that entails, whether it be buildings or our overall goals and how we're going to get there with the help of the community. I actually think, you did a very good job. I started on that committee, and I just couldn't, time-wise, do it anymore as they're trying to sort of get going. And so I've talked a little bit to them about what they're looking for, and I think actually you've done a very good job sort of summarizing the community support that we are looking for, whether it be just to help talk up the positive things going on in our schools, or whether it be to fiscally help support us when we start moving forward and discussing what to happen with the middle school, or additions or buildings, or even the new roof that we just put on recently. I think working collaboratively with that diverse group of people that are on that master plan committee is only going to help us in our big plan, big picture. I think your wording is wonderful, and I think you've done actually a very good job summarizing what I think we're all here trying to do. I don't see any specifics on testing scores and whatnot on here. And obviously, I agree, I don't think that's appropriate for a master plan. I think they want to know what in the big picture do you want to do and how can we as a community help you get there. And that's the whole idea, a place for people to go and look and get information about what we are. Tony?
Kelly?
The same thing that Michelle just said. I think you did a fabulous job. I read it, and I think this is spot on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And, you know, just keep plugging forward, because I like the direction that you've put in front of the planning board in order to move forward with the master plan. So,
Thank you.
kudos to you.
Thanks, Melissa. Michael?
Again, I just wanted to, for the record, because I made statements about what the master plan is. It's a page on mass.gov. It's chapter 41, which establishes the planning board. Goes on to call section 881D. It tells you what a master plan is about. My comment was suggesting that that would help people that are asked to give issues that are planning board issues for this planning board master plan. It's not a super master plan. It's the planning board master plan. Section 81D is a law, which is what requires the town to spend money on this master plan. We are spending money on the master plan, so let's see what, you know, this is the cover sheet that I think everyone involved in the process would benefit from looking at.
Thank you, Mike.
And I'd like to go on to the budget subcommittee, if that's appropriate.
You have a budget subcommittee update?
Yes. The Westport School Committee's budget subcommittee will schedule the next meeting and review the timelines to create the FY15 budget for the schools. We hope to establish that those meeting times this evening. In our meeting, we will review a retrospective report of past school budgets and their performance. We'll review the 2014 end-of-year figures when available from school administration. The subcommittee will review the 5-year retrospective looking for the actual school expenses within detailed categories from FY08 through FY13 in order to establish a trend analysis of expenses such as transportation, professional development, building facilities, all the expense subcategories. And we'll be discussing issues relating to expense reporting in the current purchase order system, as well as the school process audit being performed by the Mass School Business Official firm as soon as that becomes available. The budget subcommittee has requested the school administration to update the FY15 budget calendar, or we will be asking them to update the calendar for that meeting. It's the calendar that we come up with. Going forward, I believe it would facilitate the budget subcommittee's tasks to ask for actual reports on the budget going forward on a monthly basis, so that as we meet monthly, we get those updates. And again, the process audit report, we've contracted this outside firm, MassPo, to perform the process audit of the school's accounting procedures. So we'd like to review the report as soon as it's possible. And we would come back to the full school committee and present an overview of the recommendations and changes in early November. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Draft district improvement plan, Dr. C. What did I miss? Coordinate program review update, Dr. Darkin. Just check and make sure you're on your toes, Karen.
Good evening. Just a couple of updates, and I'll be very, very brief. Rewind back to May of 2012. And if you recall, the Department of Ed came in and they did a coordinated program review. And they looked at civil rights, they looked at Title I, they looked at special education, and they also looked at the English language learner program, of which I oversee. Well, the report was just drafted, and we've received it, and we have to reply back by September 20th with a corrective action plan. But I want to assure you that the areas that we were cited as partially implemented back in May of 2012 have now been corrected. There were 18 areas that they scrutinized, and a few of those areas we were not in full compliance. One of the areas we were not in compliance was with respect to a curriculum that we were using. At that time, the state was in flux. They moved to WIDA, which is the World Class Instructional Design and Assessment, and I can assure you we have purchased that curriculum in the FY13. That year we purchased it, and it is being used. They also said that we didn't identify criteria to group our students. We're a very, very low incident district. Currently, we have 7 students who are receiving direct services, and we have 9 students who are on a monitor plan. With that said, we group our students by grade, and so when we have one student in the kindergarten or one student in the first grade, that's how our students are grouped. So we'll be able to respond back to the state on that. The state also said that we had not done enough professional development training for our teachers to support and service in the regular classroom our ELL students. At that time, the category training was shifting, and now, if you'll recall, I've come before you and talked about retail and the new SEI endorsement. So that particular year, we didn't spend any additional monies on professional development that was not going to help our teachers with the SEI endorsement. We have been identified as cohort 3. The state right now is providing professional development for this SEI endorsement in cohort 2. So very soon we will be providing more professional development for our teachers. And then the last area that we were cited in is we didn't have any follow-up monitoring. We didn't have any students when they came who had been put into what was called FLEP, and they were former limited English proficient students. We had a form, but we had no students who were being monitored. So we now have plans. We have 9 students, as I said, who were monitored all last year. By regulation, you have to monitor them for 2 years before you can discharge them. So we now have evidence to show not only do we have the form, but we're also monitoring our students. So overall, I'm very, very pleased, and I can assure you that we're in full compliance now, and we will send our reply back to the state.
Thank you, Dr. Duggan.
You're very welcome.
Okay. You got a question? Oh,
Yeah,
hold on,
just-
Dr. Duggan. One question.
Now, is that report something that shows up with the profile and things? Is that tied into any of
It's
the?
actually online. You can go and see the full coordinated program review. I can certainly share a copy of the form with you, as well as our corrective action plan when I draft it for the state as well. But for this evening, I just pulled it right offline.
Yeah, no, I'd appreciate that whenever it's available, but my question is, if people are going to the DESE page that has MCAS scores and profiles of the district?
No, it is not there. It's under English language learners.
All right, so it
And I
sounds
just
like
typed
this
in
is-
CPR coordinated program review, and you'll find many of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth who between 2010 and 2012 who had their evaluation. You'll see their reports. And I looked over several districts who I feel have a very good ELL program, and I was pleasantly pleased that our report either met theirs or excelled their reports too as well.
Great.
Thank you. Draft district improvement plan.
Usually at this time of the year, do a little bit of a report, kind of looking back at the last year, looking forward at the year coming up. District administrators meet with me over the summer, and we go over those areas that we basically had put into the district improvement plan last year. How did we do, and what do we need to do coming this year? There is one part missing. You won't see it until the 25th. It's an area that basically deals with instruction, curriculum, and assessment, in part because it will revolve around how that we do MCAS. That information will probably be coming out next week. As soon as it does, we will put out a statement to the media, to the parents, and to your school committee. I believe the state is planning during the week of the 16th, but some of the people that we've talked to, or some of the communication that we've gotten from DESE, it'll be the 16th or the 20th, somewhere in there. The 19th or the 20th, towards the end of the week. So as soon as we have the green light to release the MCAS information, you will get it. So we basically, what you have in front of you is the other areas of the district improvement plan. You have school climate. One of the things we were working on last year was implementing the advisory program here at the high school. There's actually some mention of it in the NEASC accreditation plan, the accreditation report, and this year we're hoping to implement it in the middle school. We also, part of the plan was to look for ways to connect the MASCA model, pre-K through 12. We have hired a new director of guidance for this year to coordinate that effort. Also, to provide training through the RTT grant, training time for counselors to meet together and to actually coordinate those programs. The budget process completed earlier this last year. Hopefully, we'll continue this trend where there are no cuts to the local budget, so that we don't have to go to the staff with broad layoff notices, which also affected school climate in the past. We also have included additional releases of information, both monthly from the staff in the administration, and we've even started a little bit dabbling in local social media as well as our website. So those pieces, we're trying to look at school climate this year. On the area of personal growth, these were areas that originally in the strategic plan were identified as those things that happen outside of the classroom, sports, activities. We have been able to maintain all our sports and activities. We didn't have to cut anything in 13. In 14, we actually were able to now have a full-time athletics and activities director here at the high school. In terms of partnerships, we have basically maintained all the partnerships we had, although the elementary school actually went a little further and engaged the Feinstein Foundation as one of the new partners. This year, one of the things we're hoping to do is I actually was selected to participate in the strategic planning efforts at UMass Dartmouth with a view to see how we can connect that university more in line with our purposes here, not just in Westport, but the other K-12 schools in this area. We have a great relationship with BCC. We'd like to see how we can encourage UMass Dartmouth and the local school districts to engage in similar activities. And finally, under resources, one of the things we've always said is without the resources, you're going to have a hard time coming up with improvements. In the last few years, we were able to derive some savings out of special ed, transportation contracts, which were then turned into some of the activities or things that we purchased to drive the improvements forward. We don't have that anymore. Hopefully, when we go back for any other contract, we'll see some savings, but that's never guaranteed. So Last year, we went for level service, which did not mean just level funding. It actually meant level service, which means we covered our special ed needs, we covered our contractual needs, but we also were able to get a PCB monitoring warrant article in town meeting floor. Vehicles and phones were also included in articles. So we started the year in better shape than in previous years, I believe. We should begin to plan for next year, as Mr. Sullivan suggested. We have the PCB monitoring issue that will continue into the future until we decide how we're going to deal with the middle school. We have the loss of federal grant funding, actually passed through the state to the tune of about $100,000. It is also the last year for the RTT grant, so we will not have that support next year. We're still waiting for the MSBA to decide on the SOIs submitted, but we should begin to think about if they do accept our statement of interest to go from one school, 4 schools, to 3 schools, letting go of 1 school, mainly the middle school. We should begin to plan what that article or what we will have to ask the town to do if they say yes. And then, again, we're going to need to plan an FY15 for the loss of grant funding to the tune of about $150. SPED prepay, we built into this year $200,000 worth of savings from the previous year. That was one-time funding. So just to come out even into FY15, we need to either come up with $200,000 worth of savings so that we can continue that cycle of prepaying, or we have to increase our budget next year by $200,000 as long as we don't have any students leave. If we have students leave, the cost will be less. If we have students come in, the cost may be more. So just what I'm looking for as a target at least is to go for level services again, but that includes some increases to replace the loss of funding from grants and to account for the one-time use through prepayment for special education funding. So those are basically the highlights. I also included the format that you've seen over the last few years, which basically have those pieces in it with more explanation as to what's happened in the past and how we plan to accomplish these things in this fiscal year.
Any questions? Melissa?
Dr. Colley, do you have, can I take it closer to the, do you have a timeline or calendar in regards to writing grants over the next year? And do you have brainstorming sessions with the administrators to talk about what potential opportunities are available and what they could potentially be writing for if they have specific projects? And how do you do that?
The grants from the state, which are most of the ones that we write, come out at certain times of the year, and they're fairly predictable. As soon as they get published on the website, so we kind of know when to look for them, we get alerts. There's several of us that are always looking on the website around that time of the year to make sure the grants are now released. Through MASBO, we get notifications. Through MASS, we get notifications of when, and directly from DESE, we get notifications on when grants are available. At that time, we take a look at what the requirements are, because they do change from year to year. For example, the BCC grant that we wrote last year, we noticed that they had added a component that would conceivably, if you wrote that into the grant, you would be more likely to get that grant again, which was the STEM component. We did that by working with the high school administration and the staff looking at summer school. How can we do this? How can we write the best grant proposal we can to make sure we get it? In many cases, the grants are weighted. So you write the grant and your proposal gets weighted based on several criteria. A huge number of grants are now coming with criteria that you have to have a large portion of your students either failing or low socioeconomics, which we do not have. So in many cases, we've decided not to write the grants, which take about anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks to write, when we know that most of the time we're not going to get it, either because historically we've seen those grants go to schools that have large populations of low socioeconomic students, or we call the state and we say, hey, if we were to write it, here's our profile, what do you think? And they basically, in many cases, say, no, these grants were designed for schools that are poor schools.
Is anybody looking at alternative funding sources? For example, for physical education, it might not necessarily be the Department of Education, but it could be another federal agency that has an opportunity. There are some programs that enable alerts for all types of funding sources. I just want to make sure that we're looking at everything.
We get those as well. A lot of the federal grants that I have seen come through, and they're fewer than they used to be. A lot of them are written for communities that have the ability to coordinate with other agencies that don't even exist in Westport. And the few that I've called on, believe it or not, Westport is not even classified as a rural school district in the federal level. At the state level we are, but not at the federal level. So that was one that I tried to write, and they said, sorry, you don't qualify because we don't classify you as that. It's not just how much land you have as agricultural land, it's also, again, the levels of income that the community as a whole shows in their records down there. So we do get a lot of the federal grants, warnings that not warnings, they're like flash alerts. These grants are coming out. We look at those as well. Those are the main ones. Through MASBO and MASS, we also get alerts of other grants that, you know, are not usual. There may be corporations that are putting out grants. We also get a lot of the technology grants come through MassQ and a couple of the other organizations we belong to. So we get some of those, but again, many of these corporations that are putting out these big grants, they're looking for like cities, big districts that have connections to industry that we just don't have. So the amount of grants that we can write for, that we would qualify to write for, is limited just because of geographics, economics, and just the nature of our school and our town.
Are we applying for the Innovation I3 grant this year? Because I know I've sent information on that in past years, and it still seems to be in existence. And I think that I'm unclear on who we have looking for these more creative funding opportunities, because we don't qualify like some of the inner cities do. So I just, you know, the Innovation Grant is got a piece here with rural, and we are in a rural area according to USDA. So again, I would urge that we pull out all the stops and any grants that are out there that make sense for us. Certainly if you review something and it's indicated that it doesn't make sense to pursue, but
I know that
I think
that one in particular, I know Beth looked at it last year. Again, that was a year ago. And I know we looked at it and we decided not to write it. I can't remember why, but I can ask her before she goes.
Okay. Anything else on that? Dr. Colley, the FY14 update? We kind of, yes, Mr. Sullivan.
Can I ask a question? Thank you, Doctor, for, I understand that the fourth, or the fifth, I guess, grouping of goals and objectives is the academic, and that's what's pending right now, right? So that's something that we'll probably talk about next meeting?
The 9/25, yes.
Okay. Then I would just encourage all of you, and I know I've spoken to most of you in the past, to use that academic category to put forward some real measurables that, you know, we really care about as far as kids coming off the line. And that's what that's really the measure of the product that we produce, if you will. MCAT scores, SAT scores, college placement, where these kids matriculate to, whether they get jobs if they're going out for a vocation. So I assume that that's the kind of thing that you'll be looking to put forward in 2 weeks.
Yes, and the issue is the state embargoes the information until they release it to everybody at the same time. So in order for me to talk in a way that makes sense about the goals for the coming year, you have to talk about why are those your goals, which are based on the results that we got from last year. So it's kind of chicken and egg. So I have some ideas already in the computer, just waiting for the green light.
Right. No, so I'm not criticizing the timing. I understand the timing.
Mm-hmm.
I just would encourage like 1, 3, and 5 year hard measurables that we're going to try to accomplish with our kids. Not just coming off, I guess, you have to look long term, so you can't just look at the senior class, but throughout the system. So
That's exactly what we're looking for.
thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, you had a question on the...
Before we leave the DIP, just, I know the school improvement plans get a tremendous amount of input from the school councils, review, et cetera.
Mhm.
Does this plan also go through that type public process, or?
That would be right here, right now. The school improvement plans go through the school council at the school level. These are plans that basically the school, the administration gets together over the summer, looks at the progress 1 year to the next. We look at the goals from the original strategic plan that did involve the whole entire community. We had groups upon groups, and then we bring it to the school committee on a public session, and it's in draft form in case anybody wants to put in any ideas, changes, thoughts. Why, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? That's where they're in draft form, so that hopefully by the time we get the last piece in place, people will have a chance to provide feedback and be able to change it if we need to.
Okay. Again, what I was asking is if the school councils look at this as part of that community outreach, and if so, what I'd like, because it's not up to date, is who are our school council members, and what's the calendar here? Are we going to put something on our cable TV inviting parents to sign up for school councils? I think we want to get that word out, and our improvement plans, at least at the school level, rely heavily on school council input. My question was, if school council input is the community input on the DIP as well, the district improvement plan, and your answer was right here, right now. I don't understand, so what I would like is some information on the current school councils, which will include when their selection's going to be for this incoming year. I'd like to see notices that have gone out to parents. I'd like to know that they're going to review this DIP as part of what they do, because I think that makes sense.
The DIP goes to all the administrators as well, and usually it's around this time of the year when they have the open houses that school councils are invited to, the staff is invited to vote on replacements.
No, the update would replace people that haven't been involved in school councils that are on our website. If we look up school councils, some of the membership names go back 10 years. So I would like an update for that. I've asked for it other years. I'd like an update of who's on school council this year, and not today, here now, as you said. I'd just like you to send us a memo with that information.
Okay.
FY14 budget update.
FY14 budget update. We're still running the numbers, but there are a couple of things that have come up that Mr. Viveras and I have been to at least one meeting with the town financial official, Mr. Lombard, and he did some projections in terms of potential town revenues for the next few years. And then looking at those projections of revenue, he also did some estimating as to what amount of money would be available for future years. In particularly troubling is FY15, as he calculated the amounts that he's allocating based on prior years in terms of percentage basis. For example, if you have on the one that says sheet 2 at the top, page 1 at the bottom, Town of Westport fiscal year 2014-15 budget analysis, he basically saw that the schools, including the regional schools, Diamond and Bristol Aggie, were about 54% of the total town budget, whereas the town departments were 46%. If you take that same analysis into FY15 with his projection of available resources, would mean that the schools, including Bristol Aggie and Diamond, would be perhaps receiving somewhere in the neighborhood of $480,000, whereas the town would have about $415,000 or $16,000 to work with. He did note that there was increase in debt payments, which would come off the top of that, and also the labor relations settlement, which I think has been presented to FinCom and to the Board of Selectmen. I know that the number is bigger than 100,000. I'm not sure how the town is going to deal with this, but basically it leaves very little to account for any increases in the budgets at the town side, and even if the schools receive that amount, I'm not entirely sure that it would be sufficient for meeting level service plus any of the losses from grants. There was some discussion last night at the FinCom about the amount that goes to the regional schools, whose budgets in relation to ours and the town seem to be growing at a much faster pace of about 10%. So the town is working with that. So it's just a new start to the fiscal year, beginning to take shape. What are some of the concerns we're going to see? I know Mr. Lombard had asked the town departments to have their department budgets ready and to him by December, I believe December 15th. He did make mention that he wants to get that part rolling a lot quicker. So that's basically where we are. So I provided some of the information that Mr. Lombard had put together for us, including the debt payment schedules, because we do have some debt coming to basically be a part of our budgets this year. And if you look at the very back, federal grants, FY10 to FY14, you can see the steady decline in the amount of funding that the federal government has provided. This year, we see a large decrease in terms of just Title I and Title II. So whereas we used to provide a lot more services through those programs, we now have a lot less money to work with. We do have some concerns looking at staffing. Right now, we have actually been able to, as you can see from the many new staff that you had here, it has been unusual this year that we've had to replace administrative staff very close to the end of the school, the end of the summer, the beginning of the school year, and I'm actually also losing some staff, which is unusual at this time of the year. I think some of the other districts around us delayed making some of their decisions to the last minute, and it has affected us, which then triggers us having to go out to look for and replace staff. One of those is our technology director will be leaving to go to another school district, neighboring school district. My concern with that replacement and how it will affect the budget, and again, I'm going to dance a fine line here, because rather than discuss specific amounts of money in open session, we're going to leave that hopefully to the executive session to discuss what kind of monies we should be talking about when replacing positions of that nature. The Director of Technology position, we posted it. We looked at the job description of what Beth actually does. We've looked at all the applicants that we've had at this point for that, looking at their set of skills, their experience. I can't find anybody that has all those skills and all that experience. One of the suggestions is to go to some of the other models in neighboring districts where they either have a director of technology and a data person, which in my discussion with Beth, one of the reasons why she finds the job here more difficult than what other people do in other districts is the state reporting. That has taken a huge amount of her time, and it's not necessarily dealing with anything that's going to affect instruction, other than if we don't do those state reports, student information system reports, and educator information system reports on a regular basis, then the state won't send us the money that they usually send. So those are the ones that even Beth, when she did the interviews with me, suggested that we should also post a position for data and perhaps create that position. That position does not exist here. I would not suggest having both of them because the budget, I don't think, can support it. I think you could take some of the pieces of the job that Beth used to do around supporting teachers, put that into some kind of a stipend.
I'm just a little confused where we are on the agenda.
I'm still talking about this year's budget that's going to be affected by the job.
Well, it sounds an awful lot like you're talking about a new position and creating it, not the budget, because...
As it relates to the budget. Go ahead, Doc.
Right, but I've got issues with this new position. He's made statements about it being an executive. Well, we've got a position that's been advertised that the school committee hasn't approved, so why do we need to discuss that in executive? And then we're going on and talking about creating new positions and the rationale for it when the item we're discussing is our budget for next year.
For this year. It's this year's budget. This position will have an effect on this year's budget.
We were talking about Steve Lombard, and then we went into this. So that's why I asked to... Your meeting with Steve Lombard was about FY15, correct?
14 and 15.
And 15, okay. So we've got some forecasts for next year's budget.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking about budget update, or we're going into creating a new position?
I'm talking about how the position of technology or the technology positions or the lack thereof will affect the budget.
In not seeing that item on the agenda, I would ask that we postpone this discussion until we're at least advised that there's a new position that's been advertised and not even created.
Mike, no, Dr. College simply letting us know that
we've created a new position, advertised it, but we want to talk in executive about it, is what I'm getting.
No.
Well,
Can I just ask if a new position has been, if a new position, the way I understood it was, this was at the one, not a new position, correct?
Here's the issue. When I sat with Beth, she told me she was leaving. We decided to advertise. We advertised first the director of technology position. In looking at what other districts do, she said a lot of people don't do it that way. It's very expensive to have a director of technology that tries to do everything. If you take a look at the amounts that those people are paid, it's very high. What I want to talk in executive session is the amounts that people get paid, not what we would pay here, but what also gets paid in other places. So you can strategize what we could conceivably pay people without saying
Right,
in
but what
open
I was going to
session.
wait for till under the agenda, it's a time for me to bring up new business, was to bring up the fact that we cannot advertise positions that don't exist. And that's what we did this past week. Ms. Lewis gave her resignation 2 weeks ago, so all of a sudden we're already looking for a new position that hasn't been approved or created or even presented to us. And now it's coming in under budget discussion. I think it's out of line. I think that you opened it by saying there's going to be an executive discussion about it.
About monies and how we pay for technology positions. Yes, that's in the executive.
All right, because that's not on the executive note here.
I believe it is.
So we're well beyond the budget
However,
discussion.
I'm simply saying
I don't know.
the position hasn't been created. It was advertised simply to see who's out there, who has experience in these areas of technology. And
I've got quite a few positions I'd like to advertise and see what's out there, but right now we're talking about agenda items.
I was confused too about where you were going, Dr. Colley, because I thought we were looking at the budget update, and then it seemed like we were going into talking about technology positions. And I know that's my understanding was it was going to be an executive, and I know you're talking about the salary, but I think that we should look at, and I know this is your decision to make, but there are, with this opportunity, I think we need to look at other things than just filling that position. You know, there's instructional technology that we don't have in our schools, and how can we include that? How can we look at including our students and having them, if we had an instructional technology person, to be able to do some things, to give them experience, and then also do some of the duties, such as the data or the web page or the videoing. And then also some of these duties, you know, my question, which was going to be an executive, but since we're talking about it now, in looking at what was on the job description, is that something that is typically done by a budget manager or a budget and operations manager type position within a school district? And is that something that we want to be looking at as we move forward? Because I think we need to look long-term, unless you're talking about just hiring an interim person for this year to get through. So those are some of my concerns that I thought we were going to talk about in executive. But
The only thing that let me put it this way. Each school district surrounding us has people who deal with the technology.
mm-hmm.
They're in 20 different categories. Some people do one part of the job, other people do other part of the job. In another district, those two parts of the job may be combined in one position, and depending how you combine them, different positions seem to carry X amount of dollars. So that's the part that, you know, I would like to present an executive session so that we don't let the cat out of the bag as to how much money we have before we decide what we're willing to do in terms of budgetary planning and negotiations with individuals that are not necessarily in a bargaining position. In terms of the job descriptions, you can just look down the list of what Beth used to do, and I can tell you anything under data and reporting to the state is mission critical. The first report comes October 1st. So we can wait. That just means that report won't be done because there won't be anybody to do it. It's not as simple as you just give the assignment to one person, and that person in a couple of weeks can learn all the system, all the codes, take a look at the new data that's come in, make sure it's clean, report it to the state, get the reports of any errors that come back, clean them again, send them back to the state, and report by October 1st. My concern, and that, you know, is true, we posted both positions out there knowing that that part of the job description is mission critical, to see if there were even people out there that have the experience and have the facility, the skill to be able to do that without missing a beat, so we don't have to go to the state and say, sorry, we can't report this year. It's not something you can give to a student. A lot of this information is confidential, so you wouldn't have anybody who's not an employee dealing with it. And it carries dollar signs with it.
Okay, well, we're getting off. Melissa?
So do you have a listing of, or something that tells us what other districts are doing, that you're modeling what other districts are doing in regards to technology? And then,
Yep. I've called around. Fairhaven, for example, has a director, has a data person, and 2 technology people. Acushnet has a director and a teacher tech support. The director is similar to what Beth does all the reporting, does dealing with the wires and whatnot, but it's a smaller district. If you take a look at Dartmouth,
It's not on the agenda.
Freetown Lakeville, I know they're going for a director and a data person at least. Diamond has a coordinator that does some of the similar jobs of the data. They have a consultant and 2 technology people that deal with the wires and the computers. So different places use different things. They just, it's almost like you target the areas of need or the areas that are in that job description, and you see who you have either in-house that can do those jobs and divide the jobs that way, or you hire people based on the pieces you don't have. And different districts have chosen to give them different titles because they're not, for the most part, they're not in bargaining positions. So call them whatever you want, and then it's the market rate of what other people around you are paying that you're going to have to worry about, because a lot of the tech positions are paying a lot more.
Okay. All right, enough on that.
Well, I just wanted to, if I could, is there a revised agenda? Because I've been told that item that we just discussed is on the agenda for executive, and it's not, and then we're just skirting by it and talking about it.
The part that's on the part that's on the part that's on the executive is talking about what positions may or may not be in the district, should be created, should not be created.
That's
what
not
position?
listed here on the.
I'm telling you, it's in the executive. Now, in there, we will discuss, I hope, how much other people are paying for those technology positions, what data, what job descriptions they carry, what they do, and how much they
I
are.
said we're going to do, but that is not discussing the professional competence of a school employee, which is what this says that executive is about. So I'm simply asking you to please stop talking about a new position that we don't have approved yet. We've spent school resources to advertise it, to see what's out there. Let's establish the position first.
If you want to do that right now, we can.
No, I think we should put it on a future agenda. It's not on tonight's agenda, Dr. Colley. I don't know what you're missing. I don't know how many other positions we have open. You know,
all right, okay.
That should be on an agenda item.
PCB update. PCB testing, monitoring bids.
Bids went out. We've had about 8 or 9 people actually request the RFPs, and they're due on the 20th, and hopefully it'll be less than last year.
And none of them have come in. Nothing has come in.
No, they're not due to come in until the 20th.
And the testing, same as before?
Testing would be the same, 1 quarter of the school every quarter.
The criteria hasn't changed, nothing's changed. Any questions on the PCB testing?
Yeah, I had one that I'm still unclear on. We're testing for PCB air quality sampling and also wipe sampling.
Yes.
Those are the 2 tests? Is there a breakdown to the contractor on how many wipes and where, or is that their? So are we doing more wipe samples in the food service preparation area, which is adjacent to some contaminated areas that are not in compliance of the EPA PCB levels. Our food service area is directly adjacent to the loading dock area that the food passes through. So I would like to make sure that the wipe sampling in the food service area is attended to immediately. I know I've shared that with you before, my concern. My question is, if this went out, is that being relayed to the contractor, or would we have to get another quote to do that?
If you want additional sampling of that area, we would have to do it as an additional contract.
So that is not in the quote to test that area?
What was in the EPA report from here to the EPA after we did the analysis of the middle school was to test 1/4 of the school per quarter.
Which is still up to us, which and when. It's still our prerogative. Okay.
Test results are on
Okay, let's move on. Thank you.
Just so you know, we did get a preliminary, very draft, quick, rough estimate of what that report for the middle school will show once they finish the numbers. If you want it, you can have it. I'm sure it'll be in the next school committee meeting agenda.
Michael?
There's a long list of reports that are still outstanding. Can I ask that they all be on the next agenda?
Absolutely.
Because that was going to be in my new business. Certainly the long-awaited middle school report, the MASBO report, any other reports that are out there that are from last year. Let's get those into our attention.
So noted. Mary Beth, good evening.
Mary Beth Carney, Westport Education Foundation. I apologize earlier, I didn't realize I was on the agenda. It was a good thing I came. I stand before you and I ask for you to approve these 5 grants that we were hoping to give to the middle school. We were looking to give money for the Writers Guild program, an after-school program, for the 7th, 8th grade science fair, for clay and metal for the art sculptures for the art program after school, a 7th grade math club, and the middle school newspaper. Do you have any questions? I don't know what you usually do right now.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all 5 grants.
Is there a second? Discussion? Mary Beth, I know,
yeah.
do you want to get into any of these? Or?
Pardon me?
You
No,
want-
these are all pretty straightforward. Basically, what we're doing is just covering the cost of the instructor after school to run the program for 30 hours and any materials they so require. They're all phenomenal programs. The 7th grade math is including any additional math programs with regards to MCAS and outperformance. It's all enrichment programs that without the Education Foundation, the schools would not have. We wouldn't have any of these without the Education Foundation. So we're asking you to approve them so we can start them.
And just for the record, roughly around $4,500
Yes.
here tonight we're looking at. So
For these 5 grants.
just another generous donation from the Westport Education Foundation. So
And I will be back again with more. We have
So-
more.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Mary Beth, thank you very much. And
Tony, we send a letter of
yeah,
thanks.
absolutely, yes.
Karen, you got that?
Appointment of 2 school committee members to a maybe called Westport Leadership Group. Caroline, you want to?
Yeah, the FinCom, and Mark Carney's here. He can speak to what happened at the FinCom last night. But the FinCon appointed 2 people to be part of this this group. This group was started last year through the efforts of Buzzy Barron, and we met last year. There were 2 people from the FinCon, 2 people from the school. I believe it was Melissa and myself, 2 people from the Board of Selectmen, the superintendent and the town administrator. They're trying to recreate this group again this year. And so we were asked to appoint 2 people to participate. As a member of as the rep to the FinCom, I would like to put my name forward as one of the people. I did it last year. I'd like to participate again this year. And then ask, I don't know whether Melissa was interested in doing it again this year. I know you did it last year. Or if someone else, but that we, as a school committee, appoint 2 people to participate in this group. And Mark can speak to the FinCon piece of it. Again, they had this as an agenda item last night, and they voted to appoint 2 people, Mark being one of them, and I believe.
Mr. Carney, good evening.
Yeah, just, speak to it a little bit. It was voted on favorably last night by the Finance Committee. We did appoint 2 people. I think the slight difference over what was set up last year really comes to timing. So last year when this was set up, it was fairly late in the budget process, and really it was to resolve some differences of opinion, shall we say, around the budget. I think the hope that at least some of us have, and myself as being someone in the Finance Committee, is to try to get ahead of those types of questions, try to socialize amongst different groups within the town the issues that each group is facing. It's not to replace any sort of liaison positions or responsibilities, but it's to just really socialize things so that everybody understands what each group's dealing with, and hopefully collaboratively come up with a solution that helps drive the town forward, not just for the upcoming fiscal year, the current fiscal year, but really trying to take a look at that 5-year type view. Obviously trying to predict revenues and expenses 5 years out is a very difficult task, because we're at the mercy of state and other items, but if we aren't trying to do it, we will never succeed.
Thanks,
I'll
Mark.
do it if nobody wants to. If you don't want, whatever. I know if you did it last year, you can go for it.
Michael.
Hi, I had tried to find out more information about this agenda item. I spoke to Tony, and I stopped by the administration office. I had never heard of the name. I didn't know the affiliation. Based on that, it would make good sense for us not to take any action on this evening, but I was hoping that I would hear more information about what this group was tonight. Now I'm hearing they met last year. I got to go and check our records, but I don't remember appointing any membership to anything beyond liaison to FinCom. So if there was other appointment, did we make other appointments?
It wasn't an appointment. It was almost an ad hoc meeting where people got together and discussed the budget issues, but I do have some questions, but
Well, I'll be happy to finish soon, but I appreciate that update. So we didn't have it last year, okay? It was presented last year that we had it. We didn't have it. I'm here about socializing, okay? And I've got a big concern about an ad hoc committee that wants to socialize and take over the role that I took an oath to be a member of this school committee. And that's where, as we get into budget talks and things, there's a process. It worked well last year, I think. We had a major increase in funding for schools that we hadn't seen for 3 years.
Mike, and I think.
So here
in
we have
part,
a group
Mike,
that's come before. I knew nothing about the group.
Hold on.
We're talking about socializing, and frankly, I would be opposed to.
That's a stretch. I think part of the success
What's
last
the
year,
stretch?
Mike, please, Mike.
Please identify what the group is, Tony. It's on the agenda. At
You
least
just
tell
heard
us.
it right now, just like I just heard it, Mike. I think part of the success
and I
last.
wanna go
Michael,
on
you're out of
record
Mike. You're out of
saying
order.
that's
Mike,
not
you're out of
correct.
order.
We
Mike.
did not have that last year.
Mike, you're out of
She
order.
said we did.
In a
Out of
different
order
form.
because-
In a different form, Michael.
Because
Michael.
a different form, which
Michael.
included cocktails, and I would strongly be opposed to any member of this committee going out for cocktails and socializing. I think it's a bad precedent, because I'm hearing socializing, and...
All right, now you're way out of line.
No, last year, the
All right,
ad hoc
okay.
committees were cocktail
All right,
parties.
okay, thank you.
That's out of line? Or is
Thanks
that
for-
the truth, Tom?
Thanks, Mike.
Let's...
I wasn't part of it, I don't know.
I didn't say you were, but
Let me
you're
just-
saying I'm
let me
out of
just-
line for addressing an
Michael,
agenda
Michael,
item. What is
you're
this
making
group?
assumptions. Michael, last year, I think part of the success that Mark is talking about was in part because, for the, we tried it, we did it a
We
few
tried
years ago.
what?
Just,
We tried what? We didn't
Mike,
try
just
it
getting
last
people
year.
from different
That's-
committees
I just-
together to iron a lot of these issues out.
I don't have a problem with communication, Tony.
Okay,
We
that's
never had
basically
this
what Mark
committee.
is describing
We
here.
never had a
Since
group
my
last
words are
year.
being turned against
We
me,
never
I would
had,
like
I
Mike,
just,
you're out of order. Mark's got the floor. Mike,
we never
Mike,
had
Mark's
a
got the
group,
floor.
all I'm
Mike,
saying is, we never had a group called the Westport Leadership Group.
Mike, Mark's got the floor.
We never.
No one said we did, Michael.
She said we did last year.
Mike,
and
you're, Mike.
I don't know what the group is.
Mark, can you,
So first
straighten
of all,
things
when I
up?
use the word socializing, it's to put ideas on a table so that people can hear them and can talk about them and discuss them and determine whether they're valid or not valid. Not to take action, not to move forward with them, but to understand them and see what's going on there. So when I use the word socializing,
I'm just
that's
looking for
not-
the minutes from last year's meetings that we had, because we didn't have this group last year, or did we?
So
That's
I-
my
I'm
question.
trying to answer that
Did we
question.
have the group?
Michael,
May I try
Mike,
to
you're out of
answer the
order.
question?
Mark's got the floor. Mark's got the floor.
You can
Mark,
answer the question.
uh,
Did
Mike-
we have, I have the floor, you gave me the floor.
I already answered the question,
So you
Mike.
took the floor away
Yes,
because
I
I
did.
asked for
Yes, I
a
did.
true definition of what we're looking
Mr.
for.
Carney's got the floor.
So this department, that's a horrible statement. This concept has existed a couple of times in recent history. It was involved a few years ago when there was a split of how are we going to handle this major cut. I believe that was 4
I
years
believe you
ago
were
at
on
this
that
point.
committee.
There was a townwide budget committee.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
what you were
Is
on.
Is that what this is?
Pretty much, different
Okay,
name,
but
Michael.
we didn't have one last year, pretty much last
This-
name. So call it what it is.
There were a number of people that met last year to talk about the budget issues that we were facing.
Okay, but
To-
I'm,
to
my
understand
question is
them.
if we
He's ta-
appointed
Mike,
two, we
Mike,
didn't.
Mike, you don't have
She
the
said
floor.
we did.
You don't have the floor. Let
There were
Mr.
a number
Carney.
of people from different groups that met, as was already described, to talk about budget issues that were facing the town for this fiscal year that we're in now. Those two items are the genesis of this concept. There is no item yet that exists because this is what we're talking about and trying to understand if the different boards, different individuals who feel they have a stake in how the town is taking leadership are wanting to participate. And if they are, we're trying to make that happen. If it is not the pleasure of different boards to attend this, that is their pleasure. There is no item that exists at this point. It is something that the Finance Committee chair had the idea. The Finance Committee agreed that we think it's a good idea as a group and appointed a couple of people.
Thank you.
Again,
Melissa's next, then Carolyn.
I have a few questions. The first thing is, because I think if we're looking at the leadership, then are we including all of our departments within our town? Because our leaders come from all of the departments, so that would be the first thing. Second thing is, we have a budget subcommittee, so it would make most sense if we were going to do something, and this is talking about the budget, then the budget subcommittee just meet with the finance committee and whoever wants to meet at a place, and that we ensure that it's at a public place and that it's an open meeting and that it's specific about what we're going to do. Is it going to have agenda? Who's going to be in charge of it? I wonder where it seems like we're making. When we first did this, it was Carolina and I. We were appointed to go and meet. I think we met once or twice, and it was about something specific because we were in a deadline crunch. We had to get something done. I think taking it out of a school committee, I don't know that I'm in favor of creating a leadership team. I think it's a little bit, I think we need to include all of the departments if we're going to do that, and it's not my.
Kelly?
I move that we appoint 2 people from this board to go in line with the FinCom. It is to try to facilitate discussion and discourse, to try to get all of the people to the table talking and sharing information. It is not a decision-making group. The leadership group may be a bad misnomer of it. It is not a group of people getting together to make decisions. That's not what it is. It is to talk, to put information on the table, as Mark said, and to try and build collegiality and to try and get discourse in a less formal manner so that we can move forward. The purpose of doing it earlier is so that we don't run into what we did last year. And the result of last year's meeting was the schools got more money as a result. That was the benefit to the school. So I move that we appoint 2 people, and I'd like to put myself as one of the people.
Once again, as much as I'd like to make a motion, I'm going to make a comment, and as we all know, you cannot make a motion and a comment in the same time. So if I can start now.
She can. So we got a motion on the floor. Sorry.
Well, you can.
I'll second
Why not?
that. I'll second.
Who made the motion?
Caroline just made a motion. She just made a motion to appoint 2 people to this.
When she was recognized for comment. She wasn't recognized to make the motion.
Michael, seriously?
Yes, that's how it works, Tony.
We got a motion.
Robert's rule, get the book.
Is there a second to the motion?
I just seconded.
Discussion to the motion to appoint 2 people to this group.
Once again, the concept has been vaguely explained tonight, and thank you, Mark. As I said, I came tonight not knowing what this group was. I didn't know if it was a nonpartisan group from town.
Mike, that's why it's on the agenda. They
It's on the
just told us
agenda.
what it's about,
It's been
Michael.
brought forward without any written explanation. I like, even tonight, if it was a blotter item, okay, I could live with it. I was told to anxiously await.
Did I use
Carolina-
those words, anxiously?
No,
I didn't use that word.
I anxiously awaited. I was
okay.
told to await.
To the motion,
And then I
Michael.
had some questions.
To the motion.
And my question
No, we
on the
haven't.
motion is, we're approving something that did not exist last year, okay? That's all I've said, that we appointed people to the FinCom liaison, okay? We never had any appointments above and beyond that,
This group
so
isn't to undermine any
we're talking about
committee, any other appointments.
I'm not saying that. It's a group that wants to be established. I just want to know what they want to be established for, and I'd like to see a little more thought for it. Therefore, I'm opposed to the motion. If you'd let me finish. When I try to talk, Tony, I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to talk. But then I end up trying to answer your questions. It's very creative. I guess you're going to vote for it, but let me at least finish. It's a group that never existed, and you're asking us to appoint to what's been called an ad hoc committee that doesn't have any mission stated yet. How can we appoint that? I don't know.
Melissa?
2 questions. One, are the Board of Selectmen a part of this? And then 2, when this went before the Finance Committee, was it unanimous to put this forward?
So I'd like to try to address the third one, which is the question you asked earlier about the other departments as well.
Okay.
So, to the best of my knowledge, the selectmen did not take a vote on it. They did have a discussion on it on Monday, but there was no vote taken at that time. The first one that I wanted to address was the concept of leadership group and does it include other people? That was actually a point of debate at the Finance Committee, maybe not debate, discussion, because that was one of the criticisms that was brought up, that to just try to include the Finance Committee, school committee, selectmen, and call it something like a leadership group is falls short. And so the discussion at that point was to invite anyone who is an elected official in town to that as well, and potentially department heads. But the idea was to try to be inclusive of all groups. And part of the reason this is vague is because we aren't really sure, and we are trying to understand by talking to people, by bringing this idea out as to what, it needs to be. The goal is to try to build unity amongst the town and plan going forward, not to make decisions that are binding because it has no authority to. So I'm not sure. I think I might have missed one of your questions.
The Finance Committee, how did they, was it a unanimous vote to put it through?
In the end, I'm not sure if the vote was, there might have been one against. I believe there was one vote against and 8 for. I apologize.
Okay, no, that's okay. You didn't know. Is it possible to table this, to wait so that we can get more information? Because it seems if, saying that having the town have unity, I agree that we should, but I don't know if we're creating a group of two and two from different groups, that's going to create a sense of unity or segregation of, 2 groups, 2 people from the school committee, 2 people from the finance committee. I feel that, and if it's budget related, then I would imagine it would be a subcommittee, where the subcommittee, we already have a budget subcommittee, should be a part of it. So I feel like there's a lot of loose ends, and I'm not comfortable with moving forward with it at this time.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask if we could get Mr. Sullivan, sorry, to maybe his input on what your discussion was on Monday. You thought you could get away in the corner.
The chair of the finance committee came and visited with us and made the same proposal, and we didn't take action on it, but suggested that perhaps we could use our administrator and business manager to represent us. So we did not take action on the suggestion yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Caroline?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to move forward on my motion.
Okay. I'll just...
There's more discussion if you do another round.
This was brought up a little while ago. I mean, I don't see the harm in different folks getting together and try to iron out some of the things that... And it's more like Mark was saying, it's more communicating. I think it was clear last year, I think we were all part of it, and in part thanks to Mark and others, that at the FinCom last year, it seemed like, we made some headway. And I think a lot of that had to do with discussions and people getting together and advocating for this and for that, and so I don't see any harm. If they're not making decisions, we are not giving up any of our decision making. We're not undermining subcommittees or this one or that one, liaisons, none of that. I'm sure any member could attend if they wanted to, I would imagine. So I don't see any harm. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I had requested, but chose not to call on it.
So where are we? We're approval of...
For the clerk, what the name of the group is?
Sorry?
It's
These 2 guys here.
Okay, but who, I had the question before this started, I still have the question. Who is this group? Where'd it come from? You're saying it went on last year, it didn't.
We're done.
For the minutes, I'd like to know, is this a FinCom committee? Is this a town committee? Because there's liability when you start sending people, there's open meeting laws. Last year, we had these meetings. Well, I didn't know about them.
They are very well aware of all that.
Who is?
Group, Mike.
Who's the group?
Mike.
Who's the
Mike.
group?
Move on, please.
Mark, Mike.
We got a list of all appointed positions in town. Is this being added to it?
Well,
Is this being added to our list of appointments? Because if it is, and we're revisiting appointments tonight, I'd like to make a new motion now that that's over, that we revisit some appointments that we've made. Apparently, we take up appointments as random items. Maybe we should check some other appointments.
is that a motion?
If I had my appointment list, it would be.
We're talking about this one.
Yeah.
We're not talking about all
Yeah,
of them.
Mike,
The
it's
town-
on the agenda, Michael. Michael, we just
The
voted.
town
Michael,
hall
we
has
just voted.
sent out a request for appointed positions
Yeah.
from this school committee and still has no answers. So we're added some new appointments. Apparently,
No, actually,
we
they have
haven't,
an answer.
we have not communicated to town clerk some of the other positions.
We're moving on to approval of policy JICFB, update sexual harassment, bullying, and hazing policy.
Tony?
This policy comes before you because this year a new part of the law went into place to update the anti-bullying law that was established a couple of years ago. And in this iteration of the law, it includes now that bullying can also come from staff or any adult that's related to the schools. So one of the things that we need to do is update the policy. By regulation, we just updated the plan. So wherever you see the where it talks about the student being the perpetrator, it also includes now that staff members can be perpetrators. We also changed the disability or the areas where you're talking about race, color, religion, gender. I think there was one that we had missed in the original policy when that has also been updated. So it's more of an update to catch up with the law that just changed.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a quick question. Training for sexual harassment, do we have something that we do with our employees and/or our students, or both? And should that be, and this is a question, should it be included in our policy so that, you know, we ensure that that's being done across the district?
It's in the anti-bullying plan. It gets done every year. The guidance counselors or counselors at each building go room to room, explaining bullying, explaining harassing, explaining all those issues. At the staff level, you do have not just the policy, you also have the staff handbooks that explain that it's not allowed. We do cover it during orientation, convocation at the here, and then the administrators cover it at the building level through staff meetings.
Okay. Thank
Michael?
you.
This went through the policy subcommittee?
Yeah.
No, it did not. No, this one did not go through because the law just went into effect. That's why I brought it to the full school committee. If you want to send it back, you
Major
can.
changes that I speaking to the there's a motion, right?
Yes.
To accept this, yes.
So, speaking to the motion, there's some changes regarding staff members. I think following our policy to have policy changes reviewed by a subcommittee and having gone, and that's our obligation, by the way, to publicly post that we're going to be reviewing policy, but our practice is a subcommittee. I would also like some input from legal before that subcommittee meeting regarding any potential effect it has on legal matters.
Kelly?
They changed the statute. Basically, what happened is they changed the law. The legislators up in Boston changed the law to add this language. In order for us to conform with the new law that is now on the books, we had to change the language in the policy. This comes straight out of the statute. This is not language we made up. This is statutory language. It's a new law. They amended it. They added stuff to it. In order for our policy to comply, we need to add the stuff too. The same way that when they changed the law to add transgender, we had to add that category to our bullying stuff. People in Boston changed the law. We need to comply with the law as it's written. We can't make the law up on our own. This complies with the law. All it does is adopt the language that now exists.
You got a second? Tony? Do we have a second? Michael?
There was a second.
I totally agree we have to abide by the laws. I want to go on record as a member of this school committee for having reported a major felony taking place on school grounds last
Michael,
year.
you're out of order. Michael.
I would like people to follow the law as well.
Mike, you're out of order.
I reported
you're out
that
of order.
felony
Michael.
to the superintendent because he's the director of this facility.
Michael, you're out of
I
order.
abided
Michael,
by,
you're out of order.
I abided by that policy that's in our book.
You're out of order. Michael. Michael.
Let's
Michael.
send it to review as well.
Way out of order. Seriously?
Seriously, it's
Yeah.
time we stop hiding, Tony.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Holy Moses.
Aye, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, speak up.
Sorry, I know. I need the mic.
Your mic's not working.
Approval of a donation for an AC unit at the MAC.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the donation for the AC unit.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair? Just a quick question. When we put it on the agenda, the amount was listed as 50. We did some
It's 100,
research.
yeah.
The amount is closer to 100. So when the person that's doing the donation wrote the letter, he put in the amount. So
That operates? It works?
I'm sorry?
We received this summer and it worked for the summer?
the donation would come now.
Okay, does it work is my question.
Yes.
Because I'm concerned with disposal on electronics and all, as long as it works, great. If it doesn't work,
It's working.
It makes cold. All in favor?
Aye.
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 unanimous.
It passed. Motion passes. Approval of a donation for $2,814.03 from the Athletic Boosters
I'd like to make
for
a
the Westport High
motion,
School Athletic Department.
motion to accept the donation for $2,814.03 from the Westport Athletic Boosters.
Second.
Discussion? Michelle, so this is money they raise, and
I'm not part of that, I have no idea.
Yeah, to raise the money, they want to buy the scoreboards so they can be moved between the fields.
there's a picture of that in the packet here.
Yep.
Well, as you know, of course, we thank them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Routine matters, approval of minutes of Wednesday, June 26th, 2013.
I abstain, you want to make the motion?
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I move.
No one. Do we have a second?
What is this for?
The minutes.
June 26th. You were here.
No, I wasn't here on that day.
Second.
Oh, I wasn't here on that, I wasn't here on that
No?
day.
Oh, then we need to change the minutes to show that.
I wasn't here, remember, these are the ones I know I wasn't here. I wasn't here that day. These came back to us last time, and I said I wasn't here. And I'm still not, I still wasn't.
Oh, you mean nothing changed?
Nothing changed.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
We changed them online, but they're not changed on here, right? Or in your computer.
So we just need to get, to remove
Michelle's name.
Michelle's name from,
I have some input on this as well.
Like, even all these votes are 4-0, 4-0, 3-1.
yeah, you're right.
I wasn't here.
Okay, so Michelle wasn't there. We have a motion and a second.
But my name is
Is
on
it
it.
time to discuss now?
My name is on it,
I know, so
Michael.
they
So-
just
so that-
scratched
You
it
don't
out.
need to be so fresh,
They just
though.
scratched it out.
Yes, discussion now. Yes, Michael.
Thank you. I would like to, I'm voting against this motion. Yep.
Yes, Karen. Karen.
Yes.
You want us to wait on these, Karen?
No, because apparently they were approved on July 9th. The second set of minutes,
Oh, we already
the
approved them.
second set of minutes on July 9th. They
Oh,
were
yeah.
already approved.
And you abstained.
With that.
I abstained?
Yep.
Yeah, because I wasn't there.
Right.
All right, so this
they already
this
did that.
inadvertently got in here.
So, forget that motion.
So let's,
Nothing's changed.
okay, so that was an error.
Let's do
So-
July 9th.
So we're going to
July 9th.
take back our
I
motion.
take back my motion.
So we're going to approve minutes of Tuesday, July 9th, 2013. So
I wasn't here.
is there a motion on that one?
I will make that motion.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Go ahead, Mr. Sullivan.
He wasn't there.
Although I was absent, I do have discussion, so my second, I believe, is appropriate. My discussion is, we have these meetings, and they move along very quickly. My frame of reference is to occasionally catch the broadcast of these meetings. We haven't broadcast a Westport School Committee meeting 3 months' worth. It's been backlogged. The town has a channel we could send the disc over to. I did try to go on YouTube, and my computer, I have a little trouble with YouTube, and I don't think we can expect the entire public, which is what the intent is to broadcast these meetings. So I, for one, I'd ask that we remain silent when someone's speaking, Tony, and I'd ask that you enforce that.
I will. Good idea.
Thank you. So I have the chair. Thank you. Again, July 9th meeting was called.
Mike, we're talking about the minutes here. We're not talking about TV. We're not talking about, we're talking about the minutes.
I was not able to attend.
We're talking about the minutes, Michael.
I didn't know who to listen to again.
Bring it up in
Because
new
you're
business,
not-
Michael.
No.
Michael.
Why are you shouting?
Michael, the minutes, Michael.
You're gonna ask me why I'm shouting? Wow.
No, why do you keep interrupting me is what I'm asking.
Because it's 9:18 and we should have
You
been through this
second
20
the
minutes
motion,
ago.
Michael. Michael, you
We
second
have
the
a
motion.
major problem, flow of information from this school department. I wasn't able to attend the July 9th meeting. I would like the courtesy to be able to review that meeting before you discuss your minutes. I don't think it's appropriate that you continue to have summer meetings. Forget about summer meetings. The spring meetings were not on the computer, on the TV, the cable TV. We're not informing people. We're rushing through things. I'd like to see the July
Thank you.
9th meeting and the disc for it, as well as all your meetings.
I'll bring the popcorn. Any other discussion?
Can I just say, I have nothing against Michael's question about why things aren't on the television. All I'm suggesting is this is not the appropriate time to discuss it.
Thank you.
Bring it up in new business, and then we can bring it up next meeting.
That's a good idea.
That's all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Approval of minutes,
He wasn't there.
Thursday,
I abstain, I wasn't there.
August 8th. Motion passes 3-0. 3-2, I'm sorry. August 8th.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I don't have August 8th yet. do I?
Last one, last 2 pages, Michael. Yeah?
Let me look at it.
This is the one you came in late, I left early.
Well, again, is this discussion?
We had a motion. Do we have a second? Yes, discussion.
For those who may be watching this evening, I think it's a great opportunity for them to know that they can go on YouTube and, you know, this is a doozy of a meeting in the middle of the summer, some great things to discuss, so where they weren't able to see it on broadcast, they might want to find out about the discussion, because I'm reading here the discussion we had about the PCBs and the kitchen area. You know, these things have come up before. I think the minutes is a great frame of reference, some great record of what we do. So with that, I will approve the minute. I'll be voting for the passing.
Dr. C, I was going to bring this up again, but on the new business request on the 8th was about getting some quotes for soundproofing the cafeteria. Did we have
called 3 different companies to come take a look, give us quotes. Only one of them has chosen to come to take a look at the building. They have not yet given us a quote.
The cafeteria, this was just for the cafeteria. Was it the whole? Yeah, it was a ceiling of the cafeteria.
Right.
That's what was discussed today. That was the concern, was the cafeteria. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll double check to make sure Mike calls those people.
Yeah, no, I mean, we know
No,
it's very
just the
expensive, but it was
cafeteria.
we're concerned about the noise level in the cafeteria. All right, school committee business, the usual suspects here. You guys can certainly take a look at that.
Actually, there's a note that would be appropriate to read, if it's there.
What do you want to read, Michael?
Isn't there a thank you note from a parent?
Yeah, all of you guys want
No,
me to
it's a
read
thank
this?
you note from there's a
Student.
student.
You want to read it?
Letter, a note from a student. Kindness colors the world with happiness. Dear Westport School Committee, what you did means a lot. Thanks so much. I would like to thank you for your generosity in awarding me a scholarship as I enter Boston College this fall. I am honored to have been recognized apart from my classmates as deserving of this monetary support. It will certainly help defer the cost of my education as I pursue a degree in biology on the pre-med track. I promise to work hard at my studies to make the teachers and administration who encouraged my academic enthusiasm very proud. Yours truly, Amanda Nicholas. And I do know Amanda is doing very well at BC.
That's awesome, that's great.
Boston College.
And let's not forget, this is why we're here.
Yes, you do.
That's why I asked that you read it.
This is why we're here.
It also points to the character of our graduates that know enough to send a nice thank you note
Absolutely.
and let us know.
I wish
Never
more
knew.
people in town knew. Correspondence, okay, so new business requests for our next meeting? So like, I would like to get that sound, I would like to get try to get some numbers on the cafeteria, because that is an issue.
I'd like to have a new item on the agenda for new business. I don't know if it's needs to go before us, before we request perhaps the policy committee look at what our procedures are for crimes on campus, crimes in our school buildings. If there's reports of...
What do you mean, like reporting, or what do you mean, Mike? Kind of vague.
Well, there's some policies that reference an employee's right, obligation to report a felony if they witness on campus. We've been told we're not employees, so that if we report a felony, you asked what I mean, so I'm trying to make it very clear, Tony. That policy that I referenced back when I reported the felony, I was told my report of a felony was not binding on the building supervisor to go forward with it. I think that we need to revisit that policy.
Anything else? So the studies, will hopefully by the 25th.
My hope is the middle school study will be done by the 25th because they already have preliminary numbers, which is what they were waiting for. The preliminary numbers will be available to school committee in the superintendent's office for review. We also have the NEASC. The NEASC report has come in. That report will be available to the school committee. I'm hoping that Mrs. Tudelo will be able to come at the 9:25 meeting to basically report on the highlights, recommendations, commendations from the NEAS visiting committee. Very positive, but I'm going to let her do the actual presentation, so because she deserves the accolades. The MASBO report, the report is not back from them, and so as soon as I get them, you will have it.
We received a draft. We went.
The draft
some
comes to
errors
us
and
to
sent it
take
back.
a look at, to make sure that it's factual, that all the pieces that are in there are factual. We send it back with corrections, just like the NEASC report comes as a draft form. The principal takes a look at it. If she sees anything out of place, sends it back. It's the final report that gets reported out.
Michael?
I just, if I understood correctly,
Well, that new business, we're not discussing it. New
no, but,
business.
okay, so
Future,
if
but not
I don't
future
understand.
business.
On the new business items, we went into a discussion about a MASPO report. Did I hear that a draft came and got returned?
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't see the draft, is that?
The draft is for administration to take a look at and make sure that the pieces in there are factually correct.
Like I told you, we had a draft.
No, I've been asking to the status of this all summer. I was told,
I think I told you that. There was
no,
a
you said
draft.
there must be nothing bad because we haven't gotten it back yet, is what you
No,
recently.
that was maybe, what, no, there was a
That
draft.
was last week.
That
I
was
didn't
a
know
draft.
there was a draft.
I got the email.
So we cannot read the draft. Is that, you're withholding the draft report from the school committee?
No, I'm telling you that's how reports work. They come.
The draft
So-
went back, Michael.
No, I believe we should be looking at the draft as soon as it got here.
I had my hand up, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Michelle?
and I'm still
Okay,
speaking.
thank you.
My hand's up
You
there.
were, Michelle.
A couple weeks back in policy, we talked about dress code, and I thought that was going to be on an agenda soon in the school year, so I would just ask that we take a look at that. And I'd really like to hear from the principals, more specifically the upper grades, so the high school and middle school, what their procedure is for dealing with dress code violations, how they deal with it, how they prepare for it, what goes on, who addresses the issue, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, because, I really feel like you need to dress for success, and it makes a difference if you are dressed appropriately for school. It's going to affect learning, so.
Melissa.
Two things. One, on that note, would that also be talking about uniforms? Would that fall under dress code?
Uniforms,
It would
good
fall
idea.
under it. It would fall under it.
Spirit wear. Spirit wear, sorry.
That's
And
it,
then
uniform.
the second thing is, I'd like to see the draft report as well, so can we put that on the agenda for next week?
Do we still have a copy of that, Dr. Colley? Could we get that?
It didn't come in
I
electronically?
sent it back. We made the comments on it and sent it back.
It's a physical.
Piece of paper.
So then can we put on the agenda for next week talking about when we request reports and the process of how that comes back so that we can so next time we'll know that we'd be interested in at least seeing the draft so we have an idea of what it looks like?
Okay, anything else? So a motion to, well, any comments or statements from the public? Hurry up and get in line. Could be a long wait.
I make a motion that we adjourn to executive session to discuss the physical condition rather than professional competence of a school employee, and for the purpose of discussion of strategies for contract negotiations with non-collective bargaining unit employees, not to return to open session.
Second. I'm Melissa Pacheco.